hello. I do appear to be present at the moment, which I would like to consider as a good tiding. Even if well, I guess in practice the difference between me showing up right now versus me showing up yesterday is not that different, but I guess the circumstances surrounding them have been slightly more favorable in a somewhat harder to perceive way. But so I believe they have been, but yes, I'm being very roundabout with the way that I'm speaking right now, but hey, what else is new? But yes, hello to whoever may be present at this or another time. Hello Burn, hello Chocokeki. Thank thanks to both of you for stopping by. And I suppose I don't really have too much to discuss beyond just trying to get into things right now. First things of which will be the things that I usually do here. In just a moment here. And I reach for the things that I need to. Here and here. And figure out if I have an excuse. Probably not too good of an excuse, but I can at least feed into it a little bit to try and let this song play out for at least up until such a time as it actually finishes, but I guess once it gets to the end of this kind of solo part, I can sort of fade it out a little bit, because I think, yeah, right after that it goes back to the vocal chorus. And we will probably come back to that in just a moment, but I guess what I will do for now is go over to the, well, if I can, oh hey, the OBS just updated actually. I didn't even realize this at first, but OBS just updated, and apparently one of the changes that brought is that the text for invisible scenes or objects, I guess, is faded out, which wasn't really the case before. You just had to look at the like eye icons to the right. It probably doesn't make any sense if you've never seen like the UI that OBS has, but just trust me on this. But yeah, last time we did this, there was this Demon Souls track at the end, which I guess I will go ahead and play a little bit more of while I finish looking at the logistics of this. I don't really think I need to change anything to get right into this. But yeah. Well, as usual, it's gonna be like 5 random tracks. Each will play for about a minute, and any present may choose to try and guess what they are if they so desire. And I should probably also close this, well, one of the launchers that I have in the background, because I'm not using that for anything. And there it goes, okay. Probably just another little RAM launcher, but let's go ahead and I guess get straight into this. 5 tracks, starting with whatever's after this, Oh boy. First thing that was after that last track being, of course, one of the very few instances where I can say that I can at least name a track from a game in this genre. Not really from first-hand experience, just from having heard this before. I don't know if anything from this game's soundtrack has like been perceived as a potential bait for tripping copyright robots or anything like that in the past, but I guess I hope that's not the case. For some reason this particular track strikes me as something that may actually be able to appreciate that, but I don't really know. But yeah, this, well, in about a couple more seconds it will have been 1 minute, and now it has been, so pretty sure this is Tekken 7, The Long Goodbye, or whatever the, yeah. I guess there must only be one ending theme, because this upload is labeled as The Long Goodbye ending theme, so there we go. Tekken, yet another fighting game series with which I have little to zero experience, but I don't think I have any particularly favorable memories of the experience that I do have with it, but I can say that about a lot of things, I feel. Guess we're gonna find out if this gets picked up by anything. I would hope not. I guess I could just literally go to the YouTube page and figure out if there's like an ID thing there, but nah. I'll just act on faith for the time being. I'm also pretty sure that I know what track this is. It's one of those that's quite simple to identify with a mnemonic device, I believe. Is how it has been put in the past by a non-zero number of individuals, I guess is how I could put it. Therefore it must be true. I mean, it is kind of necessarily true in a sense, if at least one person affirms it, to say something like that, I would say. I don't know that I've ever actually, hearing this part of the track though, I don't know that I've ever listened to this track in any kind of detail past like the 20-second mark or something like that, but suppose I'm doing just that now. And it's been a minute, but let me see if I let it play, like at least until the end of this measure. Will it get back to different points that maybe would have been a bit more recognizable to me before? Not really, no. Just kind of keeps going and does its own thing, but this is Marvel 3, Marvel vs. Capcom 3, okay. It takes about 100, not 120, it takes about a minute 20 before it gets back to like the looping point, I guess. A little riff right at the beginning that was like the most recognizable part of this track. Apparently specifically Ultimate Marvel 3 though, and this being Theme of Nova. I don't think it matters though. Which version you were talking about when you try to talk about tracks from that game, at least not for the most part, oh boy. And the next track here is this, which I think I already know what the game for it is at least. It's one of those games that just kind of makes me scratch my head. I mean, since I'm pretty sure I know what the game is, let me take a quick look at like my Chase Quest spreadsheet thingy. Did I write in the comments for this one? Probably did. Oh yeah. The comment that I wrote is that since this has apparently only been released on Vita and PS4, if I read about what game this is, I probably wouldn't end up playing it anytime soon. Maybe if it had some kind of digital release that I could look at, that might be a slightly different circumstance, but I mean, stuff like Demo and a certain other game that's been stuck in play just for a while apparently have that. And that makes it, I would say that really that much more likely that I'll end up playing it at some point. I don't think I can say that about this one, at least not yet. Anyways, this Gravity Rush does Dakara. It is indeed that, yeah. Gravity Rush, a game that I think I vaguely recall seeing some streams of several years back, but I don't remember how long. Oh, there you go. I mean, I guess what I've heard of the soundtrack is definitely the kind of thing that I would describe as adequate on a good day. I can kind of get that, but well, let's keep this moving right along. Let's see what this is. I think I immediately know what series this is, which fills me with an innate aversion. I'm not really sure if I can put any kind of basically say anything else about it other than that. I can immediately tell what series it is, but that fact puts me with an innate aversion. I guess you can probably take a guess at which specific game within that series, but that's probably gonna have to be the end of it. I don't know if I can rightly imagine going any further than that. Has it been a minute yet? No, it has. Auras mean RSC is Lakeport City. Yeah, it figures that it would have been that series. And I probably was gonna guess Ruby and Sapphire because I'm pretty sure that I've been made to hear like a quote-unquote updated version of this track, which probably was the Omega one. Or Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire, for some reason they have different subtitles. Is it Lakeport City? Apparently it is Lakeport City, yeah. Well, this remains 2 generations ahead of the last point at which I ever touched this series, which will probably remain that way for quite a long time to come. Oh, there you go. Okay, and it's also about to fade out by itself, so I don't even have to do anything. Well, let's see what the final track is, because I'm pretty sure... Ooh, I can actually go ahead and at least affirm that I know what game this is. It's pretty recognizable from the tune. Mostly because I think that a lot of the tunes in this particular game are literally just this melody, but different versions of it. Gen 3 was my first. I don't think I ever... Well, I know for a fact that I never played anything past Gen 1 as far as the mainstream games at least. And anything else that I may have played was just like... I don't know, side games. Not many of which I could say that I played for any, at least for long enough that, I don't know. Now that I'm thinking about it, I think I've already had like this thought process before. I played like 6 or 7 games in total that were Pokemon games, but I think only one of them that I can think of that wasn't just Red and Blue. Only one game other than that one I could probably say that I actually finished, and that's a Picross game, so... I should tell you the extent of my experience, but anyway, it's been a minute for this one. And... well, this is obviously Croc, but which track would it be, like the first island or something like that? Forest Island, something to that effect. This one is called Volcano Island map, really. Doesn't quite have the kind of telltale instruments that you would expect from like some kind of I don't know, fire themed area, which I'm forced to assume that one is, but yeah, so that was. So I have to move on to, I guess, the next extra track that I usually play here, which in this occasion is Pluck. Cotton Island. Speaking of islands that I guess have sounds that don't necessarily give away whatever their nature may be, or so we assume. Did you finish Pokemon Picross without microtransactions? Yes, twice actually, because I lost my data. When I did like a system change from the first 3DS that I owned to a new 3DS that I got. And quite frankly, that was perfectly fine as far as I was concerned. Better than the alternative of actually giving money for that kind of thing. How long did that take you? A while, both times. You could probably figure out some kind of quantification for like what the least possible amount of time it could take to get that, but I mean, if I remember, they give you like those stupid points that you usually would have to pay for at the beginning of the game, like early on. They give you like big lumps of those, but then they very quickly stop doing that. But I think I remember, if you like try to ration those out the right way, then you get like more chances to do a bigger puzzles at a time, and basically you don't have to wait as much. I don't remember, it's been like quite a hot minute since I touched anything to do with that. But that's just fine. I can't even remember off the top of my head what the other Pokemon like side games that I played were, like Pokemon Stadium and fucking... I think I played Pokemon Colosseum for like 2 seconds. Maybe not 2 seconds, but you know, metaphorically speaking, at a cousin's house many years ago. That wasn't even on this continent, but I vaguely remember playing Hey You Pikachu as a kid and not being able to do anything because that was before I had any kind of significant grasp on the English language, so you can imagine how that went. But I guess we're just gonna get straight into the game now. There's probably a few more that I actually thought of, a few more like Pokemon side games that I was able to remember before that are just escaping me right now, but oh well. was the important part. Oh, let me go ahead and stop this before it trails off into the next track. And also, very briefly, go ahead and I guess bring this back. I could play this for another minute and a half, another 90 seconds to let it finish up. And I guess I just might. I don't think it's gonna take me 90 seconds to start up Creator's Eternity. It's literally 2 clicks away right here, but I don't need to look at anything at my phone, but I might possibly use as an excuse to delay that. I don't really know. Still tell me how I missed an alarm some time back, but that's the nature of my being. I can now use emulated Gen 1 and Gen 2 save data on Pokemon Stadium with the Project 64 plugin. I don't think I have any emulated save data from any of those games, though, that's a thing. I don't think I ever took the time to ever play a Pokemon game other than my literal physical copy of the European version of fucking Pokemon Red that I had for the actual Game Boy. That is literally to this day, the only mainstream Pokemon game that I ever played. So much just touched. Can I figure out what well, no. I was gonna say figure out what other games I was forgetting a little while ago, but I got less than 10 seconds to do that, so probably not. So I can maybe find out what's... okay, maybe not. What's after that track, and I can see it right here, but I managed to stop it in time with like 1 second to spare. But now I will switch over to the game here, see if I can get it visible too. There we go. Don't you play the American version? You got this person from Spain, right? Yep. That's pretty much my history with Pokemon series. I got the first one as a present when I was very small, and I don't think I ever really tried too hard to seek any of the others out. And that has not really changed many years later. Like 20 plus years later, that has not really shifted as a paradigm, I think. Huh. I thought I heard the sound of rain outside, but I guess I'm not too sure. But anyway, what happened at the end of the previous part here? I think we finished up the 4th case because it had a kind of unexpectedly at that, because it had a bit of a weird case structure. In that it apparently started as an investigation, which is not that weird. But then it went into the trial, but then it went into a second part of the investigation, and instead of going to like finishing up with the trial section, it ended at the end of the second investigation before the trials actually wrapped up, so I guess this is probably going to be a continuation of that in a way. Because the client, Mr. Prosecutor Man, that we had during the case that started up during case 4 still has not been exonerated or anything. Guess we're just gonna go ahead and start up and probably see the intro for final case for the first time. Huge spoilers for me, I guess, but I'm not playing any of these anytime soon. Oh. The intro is literally just that. There's not like separate cutscene or anything, but okay, that was a bit of a different intro for this little courtroom lobby track. The time's finally come. I'm not quite sure exactly how much there's gonna be past this point, but today we unravel everything. I would think that there will be at least like 1 extra day after this part of the trial is finished, but yeah, we learned a few very interesting things at the end of, I guess, the final case 4 investigation, but I wonder how much of that is going to come into play here. Well, it's been quite a while since we saw her do that. I think she was pretty much threatening to do that to her own father at the end of the scene, at the end of the previous chapter, but that somehow didn't happen, but it happened by complete impulse to Ryunosuke again. She just found out that her father is a partner of a world-famous detective. Yeah, there is that. Apparently, her dad was the real Watson instead of this universe's version of Watson, who was apparently just a coroner. But even that just leaves more questions open, I would say, instead of necessarily answering anything. And also, I think that implies that, I don't know, there's some kind of weird thing going on with whoever Iris' own father turns out to be, because it was said that the records of the cases that were written... God, I don't remember how did they phrase it. Like, the records that were left in the trunk that she had of the cases with Sholmes were apparently written not by Wilson, which is what he's called in this, but by Mikotoba. Which would mean something weird that they didn't really clear up at the end of the previous chapter, which is, like, she was told that her father left her all those things, but he said that he wasn't actually her father, so... Well, as of right now, I guess we got less than one entire case to wrap all of these plot threads. So I can only imagine how that will go. There's my tacit acceptance of that pseudonym. A failure to stop the Reaper becoming something more than a mere legend that led to all this. We still are going with the notion that he isn't actually involved in this, like, hazy Reaper organization that's actually killing criminals. Still going with the idea that he's not actually directly involved there. There was a rumor at the time that the Reaper was really the ghost of my late brother. That having been slain by that evil killer, Clint's restless spirit returned as some sort of demigod to wield a deadly blade of justice where I by dint of the law could not. Dint feels like one of those words that you don't really see used in a, I guess, unironic context very frequently, but it has that much more significance if you know, like, at least one ironic context where it would echo. By the way, watch the Backstroke of the West dub. Also, I'd lost my guiding light, didn't know where to go or what to do, and so, in some small way, I wonder if perhaps those rumors made me feel his absence a little less keenly, so just fed into them without being entirely mindful of the potential consequences. Burning desire to cut through all the lies and deception. You are a lawyer of absolute integrity. Now tell me, why do I detect the scent of expensive tea leaves in the air? Oh, so apparently she made it here too. And apparently was just watching this whole conversation with a stone-faced expression before she said this. She's not staying. Thought you wanted to watch today's proceedings. But I've got lots to get ready. Truly, that's not all to do with it. I guess giving back the autopsy thing that she stole all those years ago. One of those little felt dolls, one of those little phone charm looking things, but I guess that wouldn't really fit that context during this hazy time period. Looks more like a Hurley to me. Oh boy. One of those statements that makes you wonder what that said before it was translated. Just pull this little Hurley's ears as hard as you possibly can. Why is that probably gonna have to be interpreted in a completely literal way? It's a way to bring good luck. There's also probably something inside it. If I had to guess. Just need to peek inside the courtroom. It's still a closed trial. I guess if it's the same case that was being pursued in Chapter 4. Case 4. Certain someone has decided to pull out all the stops. Oh boy. Actually, before we continue this conversation, let me see if we can take a look at this thing. We still have all the evidence from Case 4. Yeah, but sure is a charm-looking thing. I guess if it's not... You can't really call it a phone charm because cell phones don't exist in this time period, but... Would you then call it like a bag charm? Some kind of pocket charm? I don't know. I suppose what happened if I were to target it with all my might right now? Okay. Apparently one of it. Okay, never mind. I guess if you look at it at this angle, it looks like you could interpret one of its ears as being like chopped off partially, but then you turn it and it turns out that that's not the case. I guess that's about it. Just got a little bag and everything. Wonder if this is secretly gonna turn out to be one of those dolls that was being created by the 19-year-old doctor in the mortuary or something. And we still have no idea. Like, apparently, yeah, we got a ban. Sholmes ran out at the end of the last chapter, and we have no idea what they were doing, or what they are doing even now. Other than Judge Shioku, I guess he's also absent. I have no idea what's gonna happen right now, but honestly, based on how long the final case was in part 1, I would like to imagine that it's a good thing that I've allocated at least 3 days to deal with this. But I mean, they're introducing this whole section with some kind of big sense of finality. It's all been leading up to this one day, this one trial. So I don't honestly know if I could expect, like, what I can expect concretely, or to quantify it. But I guess that's what we're here to find out. Feels even more oppressive in here than it did yesterday. Maybe somehow already found out us about... Well, there's also this guy somehow taking the judge's place. About the inquiries that we were making and, like, finding out more about pretty much everything the previous day, but the ramifications of this trial now extend far beyond the murder of one Scotland Yard inspector. Events have come to light that threaten to rock the very foundations of our country's legal system. All had to do... Oh yeah, because the guy that was implicated during the last part of the trial was, like, involved in that whole incident. Revelation that prison staff must have been complicit in the jailbreak that happened 10 years ago, even though I thought they pretty much should have known that by now. But I guess they were just trying to sweep it under the rug. It is imperative that we uncover the truth in these proceedings to avoid international embarrassment. I mean, they already have to know who one of the people involved was, right? Had to have been Courtney Scythe, who was the coroner in that case. There's still no jury. Those here present in the public gallery are distinguished members of our judiciary, assembled to bear witness to a fair judicial process. Collection of your acolytes. Oh. You're a prosecutor of exceptional talent. Much like your brother Clint, in fact. I'm gonna use this horse figure on the tip of my cane as a gavel. It'll make the exact same noise. Or an even sharper noise somehow. There was a side to the victim, Inspector Tobias Gregson, that was unknown to his superiors at Scotland Yard, but apparently was known to at least whoever else was involved in that whole Reaper business. And in those clandestine operations he had an accomplice, Mr. Daily Vigil, who would be given the inspector's identification and present himself around the capital in order to establish credible alibis for Gregson. Whilst he was engaged as chief warder at Barclay Prison, he abetted the convict's escape. Oh yeah, there's also like the, apparently the last will and testament that the convict left behind that nobody ever found, or so they claimed. Except that it was found, according to the governor at least, and he gave us a copy. But it still doesn't seem like it means all that much. He's formally admitted to posing as Gregson whilst investigating the Red-Headed League. Which brings us to the victim's time of death. The victim may have been killed one day earlier based on the fact that the victim's pocket watch had not been wound and, you know, just wasn't broken, in spite of the fact that the glass was broken. I met once again with the coroner yesterday to discuss this issue. Oh hey, so did we. She confirmed the defense's suggestion that the defense's suggestion could not be ruled out, but it's and she gave us a new piece of writing on the autopsy report that said that the time of death was indeterminate. It's possible that what we said was true. The official opinion of the investigation team was made clear yesterday. The time of death was 5 PM on 1st November, and yet we're saying right now that that's not necessarily true. The natural decaying process of the victim's body may have been slowed by keeping it chilled. There are no refrigeration devices in that part of London large enough to accommodate a human corpse. Well, what about the snow? Isn't it like late in the year at this point? Couldn't they just like get a bunch of ice and, you know, put that in one room? Surely it can't be that hard. Okay, so he knew what he was doing, in spite of the fact that he was specifically taking steps to make sure that nobody knew. Who could the witness be? Oh, it's her. I was about to suggest that it might possibly be her, since she's like the only, I guess, person that we know that's working with Scotland Yard officially at this point. Indirectly, but... Representative of Scotland Yard. Self-conferred rank, but never mind. Well. Got me out of the back slums of the East End and took me under his wing. Taught me that life can have a purpose. Gave me a job. Wow. out of the goodness of Gregson's heart. Not at all that he had his arm twisted by Mr. Sholmes. Not at all that he was also conspiring to take her away so that she wouldn't be, I guess, in reach of the actual Reaper murderer. Feel that the victim was carrying out some assignment the police knew nothing about. Detectives are supposed to follow orders and investigate what they're told. A little search of the boss's office turned up a notebook that had a load of secret meetings in it. According to that, the boss was looking into some smuggled goods dealings that day. Big job and all, but the coppers weren't onto it yet. Amongst most sisters witnesses what saw the Reaper at the place too. I guess by the Reaper she means fancies at this stage. We don't know what smuggled goods. Tobacco, tea, spices, medicines, goods of all sorts, flowing to London by illegal channels. Police are rarely able to locate them in time, that's probably why those black markets work. And he was going over people's heads because they would have been involved. Particular room of a certain exclusive London gentleman's club. I wonder what it could be called. And on the day in question, the accused is known to have been there. Now, do we get to hear more about that now, or do we just, I guess, we probably get more information from the cross-exam first. And yeah, he didn't tell us about that at this point, or at any point. So that should have some significance.
Hold it!
I don't know if we're gonna really find a contradiction here, but let's get the information. You'll follow orders, Eugenia. Well, what will that see? Clearly. Boss always had special orders for me. Grab some fish and chips or go and give Toby his grub, that kind of thing. Well, apparently seemed want to sit around and wait to be told what to do by the boss. I've been doing my own investigation into what happened. Well, that was concise.
Hold it!
Can we see the notebook? In our own evidence list, or... Anyone at the yard that seen me going in there, they'd have turfed me straight out on the street. Well, I mean, that could be effective. Underneath the out of his desk drawer, there's had a false button. Not just like in that manga. With that guy with the big laugh. And I went white myself and now I could find me, so I could have a butcher's at what was written at it. That's one way to put it. I was just looking into some smuggled goods dealings that day, and apparently they were being made at this club that we were talked about, or told about. But I would say the illegal dealings were due to take place at a gentleman's club. I was hoping to find out the name of the club. Well, that won't be necessary, so they're not gonna bring up what I'm already suspecting. It's conceivable that the club might be used again by the smugglers in the future. I mean, would they even be able to find... Well, I guess if they have, like, conspirators in high levels of government or what have you, I guess they probably would be able to find out. Based on this closed case. Closed hearing. It's right here. All I gotta do is read it out. And I could too. I'm no longer illiterate. Even though I pretty much implied it at least some time ago. Let's insist. I just want to find out if it's gonna be this is how they incorporate the Diogenes Club. Or what? Shouldn't be any possibility of the information being leaked, except, you know, there's some possibility of politicians being involved in this affair. Yeah, he just kind of spelled out what I said before. Prosecution is rightfully exercising caution, I imagine. Except apparently that's not what's happening. Or at least he's yielding now that we've begun to insist. It's not yet been established that he was on that particular trail on the day in question. Okay. It showed me reading skills. Apparently the smuggled goods deal was gonna happen at a gentleman's club called the Grouse. Okay, that's not quite what I was expecting. What sort of a club is that? Look in the mirror recently, well. Me and Chief Inspector Toby could go in undercover, surely. It'll be just like getting into the Turtle Club. Could pick out a few good marks and see what else I could find out while I was in there. Well, probably stand out though, as it happens. It was a big job and all, but the covers weren't onto it yet. What matters most is that there's witnesses what saw the Reaper at the place too. Oh, right. Supposed to press more. I just kind of blanked on that for a moment. Everything he told us is true. There must be a mistake in this testimony somewhere. About him being there. Can we, like, actually... argue that? Maybe? Let's see. The Grouse. We don't know, but the covers weren't onto it yet. Or maybe they were being steered off by somebody else. How did Inspector Gregson come to find out about it? That's a question, ain't it? Why didn't he inform Scotland Yard of his findings? Well, I think you already talked about that, because he didn't want whoever was higher up to find out. There's witnesses what saw the Reaper at the place too. Well, can we get some kind of ID on those witnesses? Could probably be what follows at this point. Detectives who visited the club yesterday to make inquiries have confirmed it, really. You know that Lord Van Six was investigating Inspector Gregson, don't we? So he was chasing after Gregson to look into what he was doing. None have been identified at this time. Oh, how convenient. Or were they saying that the... There were no identified witnesses who saw, not Van Six but Gregson, but there were witnesses who saw Van Six. Maybe that's what they're saying at this point. We did get this new statement. That's pretty much the only thing that wasn't in the testimony to begin with, so let's take a look at the court record. I don't think that the Grouse is a name that we've seen before. We can get the updated autopsy report, I guess. Maybe. No, this is Clint's autopsy report. The updated one would have to be Gregson's, which... does it say... indeterminate? Yeah, instead of just being blank, it says evidence suggests measures may have been taken to disguise the time of death. It's being denied by certain characters at this point, but I don't know. But yeah, which of these things could possibly be related to the whole Grouse thing? We have 3 full pages of evidence. There's the passport, which I don't think has to do with anything. There's the autopsy report for Clint, which I don't I think I did see before, but I barely remember any of the details, so... 31st May between 9 PM and midnight. A single stab wound to the heart, there was a duel. There were scarlet ink stains visible on the little and ring fingers of the right hand. Recovered from the victim's stomach during autopsy, credit to Inspector Gregson for petitioning so doggedly for the autopsy procedure. Still don't know why we have this photograph, why that this is going to be important, but... Surely we can't tug the ears in this thing yet. Or at least get a different, yeah, get a different response from that. Taking another look at this. Is there anything here? Paper from 10 years ago is browning with age. Most recent thing appears to be this newspaper cutting here. The same red-headed advertisement that Mr. Sholmes had picked out. Which I'm pretty sure we had seen before, along with the handprint and all that, but I guess we can just look over that again. All of the hotspots on the evidence are going to be blank again. Dismissal notice, letter of introduction. What did it say on the back? Blackbird line. Also Wolf Wolf. The SS Grouse, first class Kevin 001. Alright, we saw this ages ago and didn't really remember it after the fact. Call at Dunkirk on the north coast of France for a night before finally arriving in Dover. Where could he have gone? Oh. So apparently the Grouse would actually be the ship that these two were arriving here in. So I suppose. But if it only says the name the Grouse on the notebook, then I guess we can argue that this wouldn't have been a club at all, but rather the ship.
Objection!
I guess that's what we're doing. What about these clubs that exist here in Britain? Places where well-to-do gentlemen socialize with friends and colleagues, except... And imagine for a second that a foreign student like you would be admitted. And also, yeah, is your mirror cracked or something? It's like in Life is Strange with John Sims. Do we know for sure that the contraband, not Life is Strange, Life on Mars? Maybe that makes up, but... We have the name the Grouse, but it doesn't. Does it actually specify that it's a clue or a club? A clue that relates to a club. The place Inspector Grayson was secretly going to visit on the 31st October may not have been a gentleman's club at all. And we have the evidence, I guess. A steamship. And we have this evidence that was conveniently given to us by this people that just so happened to come here. Dark-suited man, young man is not in the least bit untrustworthy, but yeah, that's the other side. Would appear to be a ticket for passage upon a steamship, yes, the SS Grouse.
Objection!
Notice the date of arrival in port. It arrived at the port of Dover on the 1st November, which means that it would have been, after the 31st October, which is when we are, I guess, positing that Gregson died. Day on which the sound like a gunshot was heard on Fresno Street. In other words, when the victim was on his clandestine mission, ship hadn't yet docked on British shores, or so we're led to believe.
Objection!
Maybe he took some kind of special steps to, like, meet it halfway, or at least halfway from some indeterminate point and the actual shore. And we do have that, or so it would seem. That evidence. I think that might be related to the passport here. Let's see. It says... Within 1 week from 31st October, police business... Permission for the applicant and one additional person. But we have to prove that he was investigating that ship on that date. Even though it hadn't yet gotten to the shore, or so the ticket seems to show. I mean, is there anything else at all that would possibly relate to that more so than the passport? Probably not. I'm just gonna try throwing. I'm just gonna try showing this to start. I guess this is it. Dated 31st October. What are you suggesting? Just 1 day before the inspector's body was discovered. There's a distinct possibility that he wasn't even in the country. I don't know when exactly he would have gotten this passport issued then though, but for passage to France does appear to have been officially authorized. The day before, docked on the northern coast of France for a night. The port of Dunkirk. Oh yeah, I guess that's the implication. I could possibly have taken the victim there. Well, I thought he was planning to just go there permanently and take Gina with him, but I guess that little detail must have been... Well, it's being overlooked right now, but it's probably gotta be brought up by the other guy. Prosecution strategy for this trial has been laid down by the Crown Prosecution Office. On the day before the incident, the victim was investigating contraband dealings at a London club. Personally, I don't agree. Apparently he's done something secret too. You've expertly disproven the assertion I intend to reveal, but I believe that's something to be told. It was your intention from the outset, wasn't it? Prison Inspector Gregson secretly made his way to the steamship docked in France on the day in question was to carry out a mission for the Reaper. Well, we're definitely gonna have to hear more details there, especially if it's the prosecution that's presenting this. Gregson was investigating the identity of the Reaper, and he discovered the location of the man's secret hideout. He was killed. I'm sure everyone can imagine by the Reaper's hands, so does that mean that he was killed on the boat and the body was refrigerated on the boat? Except he wasn't investigating the Reaper at all. He was in fact acting for the Reaper. So the mission he was undertaking was an assassination. I mean, would he actually have been the one to do the assassination that time? I guess it would have to have been somebody else ever since fucking the one that they said was acting as the assassin was actually killed herself. Unless he somehow also secretly turns out to be not dead, just like him. And Six never carried out any of the actual killings. Whenever the Reaper's victims lost their lives, he always had a cast iron alibi. Which tells us that he must have had an accomplice. But we were also operating under the assumption that if that was the case, then Gregson would not actually be the one to kill people. Only that the person giving him orders was Lord Van Six, though. True Reaper would be somebody else. So it literally was a Yatagorosu kind of thing, like I was saying a few times. Oh, who is the true leader here? Even if it's true that Gregson was operating as an agent of the Reaper, suggesting that he went aboard the SS Grouse on an assassination mission doesn't follow at all. Well, what do we say though? On the day in question, nobody was killed aboard that steamship, or so we're led to believe. Do we have proof of that? Mikotoba and Judge Shigoku were on that very ship. someone had been killed, I'm certain we would have heard about it. Unless they were also trying to show tact or what have you. No suspicious deaths were reported on board the ship. But I think perhaps you've missed the point. Precisely why Inspector Gregson himself lost his life. He did board the SS Grouse that night with the intention of dispatching his mark, but his mission ended in failure. Seems that the defense hasn't yet grasped a very important detail here. What would that be? Is she really gonna have to be the one to spell it out? The victim's notebook that you read an excerpt from earlier. Jesus, I need to really slow down right now. It's been like an hour. I feel like I'm tripping over every word. Doesn't contain details of secret investigations at all. Describes 10 years of assassination plots to be carried out by the Reaper of the Bailey. I mean, maybe if we were able to look at the notebook directly. No question that Gregson was heavily involved in the Reaper's activities. He may just be an apprentice, but if you've spent any time at Scotland Yard, you must have heard the rumors. Well, or if you just deny it. Alright. How could you refuse something like this? This notebook does have a lot of stuff about what the Reaper got up to these past 10 years. Names of victims, dates and places and stuff. And the last entry in there was 31st October. It grounds for the place and that date, and then the name of the mark, which would be... Was a note about him being a criminal but got away from the Reaper in court 10 years ago or something? Really? So would it have been the judge? Was reprimanded during that trial? The notebook contained the name of the final mark and the location where the assassination would take place, even though we have not actually heard that name yet, I don't think. So could we come to that detail now? Who was to be this final mark? Go ahead. The name was written alongside the entry that mentions the grouse on 31st October. How do you read this then? Yeah, it was probably the judge. That ain't the problem, right? It's a funny name. It ain't English, it's hard to read. That's someone from overseas. Saishiro, is it? Seishiro. Jigo Q, maybe? Well... Seishiro Jigoku, yeah. Really not an English name, you're right, but he was involved in that trial 10 years ago, trying to speak in defense of the professor. I saw him the day before yesterday here in London. He hasn't been assassinated except that he has not been seen for a while. Maybe that's what Mikotoba and Sholmes were trying to do before, trying to hide him. Specifically because they knew they were coming up. This was coming up somehow. Gregson missed his chance to kill his mark and return to British shores. But Reaper wouldn't tolerate the mistake, so he killed the inspector personally. So he was somehow also above the ship. It's what the prosecution is arguing right now. Jigoku was in hell. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what that's supposed to mean, but it's a bit of a poignant name, but I'm pretty sure that we've known it at least since the end of case 1 of part 2 here. He hasn't really figured into too much of the plot as a whole. It's just gotta be something that sticks out. He's gonna do this even from this position. There's one thing I can say unequivocally. That girl is no detective. Well, rumors head around the yard, reading entries from a notebook of unconfirmed origin. Yeah, there is one detail that nobody has really questioned so far. It's not testimony, it's practically a script. No doubt the rest of this trial will go exactly as you've clearly planned. So he's also being accused of going along with whatever's being like the predetermined outcome of this trial so far. Maybe privy to important information relating to the testimony just given by the witness, and we're gonna try to give him weight of testimony. That will probably be favorable to us. Defendant may remain in the witness stand for the cross-examination. I don't really see how else that would work, but... Alright. Raise your glass in my direction, sir. How dare you? The notebook does have a lot of stuff about what Reaper got up to these past 10 years, and... I mean, he was allowed to speak, so... We're just gonna be cross-examining this testimony. Oh yeah, I guess that was presented first. But when we do the cross-examination, the other guy's also gonna be present to maybe say stuff. And that's probably gonna be a necessity based on the fact that he's just gonna be over there. I've been investigating the Reaper in secret, and that notebook said what he found out. Investigations proved conclusively that Gregson was one arm of the Reaper. The victims were all extremely shrewd criminals at the top of their game. Simply no way that one person could have taken them on alone. The Reaper is an organization. But spies at the yard keeping me abreast of Gregson's movements, letting me know when he was elsewhere. So he knew about that location, which is not really favorable to proving that he didn't do it in this case. And he went to the gentleman's club. Oh, I would say that also gives him an alibi, actually. If he went to the club, there really is a club called Grouse, and the inspector was at a completely different place. That was a ship called the Grouse. But I guess we're just gonna shrug off that detail. That's actually quite favorable for us right now. Actually, what was it? Shown by the passport found in the victim's metal trunk. I guess we are maybe wondering how the trunk itself could have found its way over to the city or the room that it was found in. Actually, yeah, the trunk was probably tampered with, wasn't it? That's why it has like a gash by its side. Maybe that passport was actually planted. He wasn't actually on the ship, is what we're eventually gonna try to argue, which is the opposite of what we argued earlier. I mean, maybe. The other name kept cropping up. Assassin? Yeah. Well, I mean, we've had something to do with her a couple times. The assassin. It's a little on the nose, don't you think? Investigated the marks thoroughly, finding out when they would be vulnerable and who to use to get at them. But the person actually executing his plans was someone else. that's true, then the Reaper does indeed start to sound like an organized group of vigilantes. Permission for the applicant and one additional person to travel. Could that have been the assassin? Even though that we know that the person who was accused of being the assassin ostensibly died in Japan. So who else could it have been? There's a final entry that listed Grouse and Seishiro Jioku. What name was written? That's the only entry that didn't have a name next to it as it happens. Well, yeah, we probably would have heard about that by now if that wasn't the case. But like a question mark or something there, I think. Yeah, right now I think we're assuming that it couldn't have been the same assassin. Nameless assassin. Well, I don't think this would be the first time that they had like a nameless villain at the end of the game. I should probably confirm this real quick though. This came out in like 2015, I think. When did this game come out? That one came out earlier in 2013. Okay, so yeah, this would be the second time if they do go for that somehow. I mean, we're probably gonna find out a name at some point. Is it Grouse and then the name of the mark? I guess we don't have any more details that can give us more names. The mark means Seishiro Jioku, who we met here a couple times in London, but he seems to be missing right now. What does that sound? Sounded like an acoustic guitar. That might have been the sound of this thing, the friggin' springs on the microphone stand. I don't know exactly how that was produced, but probably something like that. Because this thing loves to like pop around when I try to move it even just a little bit. Your young fellow was a very able man, I must say. Years ago after that fateful case. In the aftermath of the professor's case, his repatriation was organized immediately, even though I'm pretty sure I don't remember who it was, but somebody told us that that guy got reprimanded in court for speaking in the professor's defense. Did you think it was possible, but the mutineers got even worse now? Well, what have we to say? Not about him being a criminal who got away from the Reaper in court 10 years ago or something. Maybe now we'll bring that up. But yeah, I'm pretty sure that he wasn't actually branded as a criminal except for the fact that he spoke out. But like I'm sure I said at that time too, whenever that was brought up, also gotta consider that the last person to be executed for treason in Britain was in like 1940 something, so it's definitely not out of the question that such a thing could be seen as a crime. Also said some contemptuous words about the British Empire for which he was charged, yeah. I mean, it probably wouldn't be treason given that he's not a citizen of the British Empire, so to be branded as something else. And yeah, he would have seen that. It was considered to be an adjunct to the professor proceedings, you see, but he was acquitted after being told to make reparation for the damage caused to the stand. Well, I think they did say that he actually broke the stand. Surely the accused hasn't forgotten his own rule. No saving anyone who faces the Reaper in court, guilty or innocent alike. Yeah, there is that. There would be like one person that technically got away without an execution after having been indicted by Van Zieks in court. The reason he was targeted for assassination was because he was sent back to Japan immediately after that trial. The Reaper had no time to do his work, just like apparently happens every time that someone who faces Van Zieks and gets away and goes to a different country is able to survive unless they come back. And then 10 years later, the mark returns to Britain once more. Perhaps now you start to see just how vindictive the Reaper is. The whole premise of the Reaper absurd, killing those who have been found innocent. Well, all this nonsense, it's cobblers. I mean, yeah, I guess that's what we're trying to do as usual. Definitely missing a lot of details, though. That outburst was an insult to the court and to your own testimony. Well, I'd have known that a common pickpocket from the back slums couldn't make a detective. Well, what is he saying? You will forfeit your warrant card, Miss Lestrade. Oh, really? There was one point in this cross-examination when something that was said just didn't seem right with me. One statement that seemed odd. It was to do with the trunk. I think maybe, but how do we get to that? You gotta find a flaw somewhere. Is that all that she's gonna say now? Oh, I think she said that. Or she didn't say that before, actually.
Hold it!
Almost everything we've heard during this cross-examination, there is one thing. Defies explanation. What inconsistency? I don't quite know what it means yet, but when has that ever stopped me before? There's an inconsistency in something that was said by Pear, I guess. I mean, don't really have a chance to back out now, so we have to press forward here. I mean, would it have been her that talked about the trunk? I don't think we can go that far back in the history to where we get to that point again. Yeah. I don't know who said it, but I think it was to do with the passport that was in the... Surely it wasn't this guy.
Take that!
There was definitely something strange about it that didn't add up.
Objection!
Okay, so I guess that's not it. But it had to have been something he was on the stand, so... A person doesn't necessarily have to be in the stand to say something that doesn't add up in court. Nope, I guess that's actually a double denial there. Much rather just a step away from the right answer. Oh, okay, hold on. I guess I have to like go over the whole testimony to get to that prompt again. So let's probably go back in time a few more times on this occasion. It's somebody who's lying and that, or said something that was weird and isn't necessarily somebody that's on the stand right now. It would have to be... I mean, we're not gonna say it's this guy either, surely. I mean, might as well just confirm these weird things.
Objection!
To start. I feel like this might be one of those trap prompts where, like at the end of Ace Attorney 3, where it's a little harder to save scum because they always say the same thing at the beginning. And if you make the right choice in the end, I get the feeling that it might turn out to be something like that. I mean, I guess we could just try to people understand to see if that works. But it's really as simple as that. She's the person giving testimony here, so if there are any inconsistencies, they can only have been introduced by her, or so we claim. Maybe the evidence you're obviously about to show to the court will clarify. I mean, would it be the passport or the... Would it be the passport or the trunk? I feel like it has to be to do with like one of these two things. I guess she did mention the passport, I think. Probably a good idea to start there, but it might not be this based on this response. That'll learn you to go banding that apprentice claptrap about. Well, even though I guess we're not going to point out the hypocrisy there. Let its failure be a lesson to all you apprentices. Okay, so you can get kicked out of that line of questioning there, but that doesn't actually get you a penalty. If you fail during the second part of that. Well, hold on a moment. Let's go over these presses one more time, because I think that the statement, or at least the part that was implied to be an inconsistency was in like one of these first two statements. Spice of the yard, the grouse. Okay, let me, I guess, get to the end of that press thing, but then we can go over that real quick, because I'm pretty sure that this is the part that you're supposed to focus on. He was making his way to the steamship docked on the northern coast of France, as shown by the passport found in the victim's metal trunk. But yeah, how would his metal trunk have found its way back or something, and why was it in such a weird state? I feel that that's still what we have to focus on, but if we go by this statement, that technically would not have been said by the people understand either, but by Kazuma. So maybe if we go back to the prompt moment here, we can try to pursue that while he's here.
Take that!
And now the music stops. I don't remember if it did the last time we did this. Okay, so you can try to answer Gina or Van Six, I guess, but you do get different dialogue, but that's partly just a complete fake out. Let something slip that you shouldn't have. I guess we go straight to the metal trunk.
Take that!
This is a trunk that belonged to Inspector Gregson. It's also got blood in it that nobody has talked about so far, and you know, the gash that I think kind of implies that something may have been planted in it. It's probably what we're supposed to draw from that. Wind that in grease from all the boss's fish and chips. Well, I mean, is grease usually that color? It would be some interesting grease. I guess that the victim was traveling with that luggage when he was killed. Except apparently it's an inconsistency in all of these stories that we've heard. Immediately after the inspector's body was discovered, one of the street peddlers made off in the trunk, yeah. But if he was killed on board the ship, that would have meant that whoever killed him would have had to also bring back the trunks. Is what I'm thinking. And do it on purpose so that false evidence could be found in it or something. Yet during the cross-examination of the witness just now you said this. Because at the time he was making his way to the steamship docked on the northern coast of France, as shown by the passport found in the victim's metal trunk here. So the question is, how did you know about the inspector's trunk? Oh yeah, there's that too. I think that's the part that you were supposed to focus on, actually. That didn't actually hit me until now. It's one of those moments where you stop following the logic and have no clue what's going on for a second. Yeah, kind of. I feel like they did give enough clues to at least make it possible for you to trigger this conversation, but it doesn't actually become clear exactly why that was supposed to be significant until a bit later. You know, the man went on a trip to France. Where else would he have put his passport? Well, Who said the trunk had to be made of metal? Where exactly were you on the 31st October? What? At the port of Dunkirk on board the SS Grouse. Is that the answer you're looking for? Are you perhaps looking for that very loud gate that I think it is that makes that weird screeching noise whenever it opens? If Kazuma was there on the ship, then it can only have been for one purpose. Oh boy. What are we implying? I don't think we were trying to imply that he was on the ship. Until literally this moment. The only thing that really talks in the courtroom is hard evidence. Well, what hard evidence could we possibly have that... I mean, I guess that would also be the implication, though, that he only knew about the metal trunk because he put a pin there himself. But yeah, it would also be not too difficult for him to just worm his way out of this one. Are you challenging me to prove it beyond all reasonable doubt that you were there that day? There's a clue that you've overlooked, a secret that trunk can tell us. Oh jeez. Is that how we're gonna explain away the gash? Defense will identify for the court where in the trunk this alleged clue is to be found. I don't know if we can prove that very conclusively, but well, we don't have the chance to save scum right here, so if we take a penalty right now, I guess we're just gonna have to eat it after all, but also it can't not be this, surely. Unless it is. These Nightway Lawners courtrooms will be safe from this destructive accusation as well. Now we're gonna be fine for the time being at least, but... Hold on, I come this far. Without having to suffer a penalty yet, so clearly that means that I need to use a separate save slot for this. Okay, if it's not that, then what else could it possibly be? I didn't even get a chance to like go to the menu from this screen, do we? At least not after that thing goes away. I mean, could it be something inside the trunk? If it's not the gash, then what the hell is it? Is it something that's left inside? Oh, wait a moment. Didn't notice this before. There's nothing stuck inside of the trunk here, it's glinting. Okay, so I did have the right idea, but it wasn't looking at the right part of it, because I somehow didn't notice this little metal fragment, even though I had already looked inside the trunk before.
Got it.
So that's going to be it. There's a small piece of metal lodged in the wall of the trunk here, like the tip of a blade. I think that we would have a similar piece of evidence to that in either this or just part 1. The esteemed blade Karma. I want to draw it here for all to see. Watch Prosecutor Asaki like a hawk. Well, he hasn't drawn it in this courtroom yet, but he has done it before. And sure enough, tip is broken. I'll take your word on that. It feels like the shape is just kind of awkward enough that you can't tell if it's supposed to look like that or not. So this is just immediately followed by an admission. So the additional person authorized to travel was, well, that guy, and the mission was the assassination of the Mark. So he would have killed a judge from his own country. And it's not clear if he managed to do it or not. Maybe he'll talk about that next. He says he's killed no one though. Never had any intention of carrying out the plan. And yeah, I guess there is that. We did actually see him after the fact. Doesn't seem to be around now though. Nobody told us she had no intention of going through it anyway, so instead, didn't come to Great Britain to take anyone's life, so I left Gregson and disembarked the ship. Just like that, spent that night at a boarding house in the town and returned to England the following morning. A boarding house in Dunkirk. Then what became of Gioku? Gregson was no assassin, so the Mark was spared and he made it to England. And he, well, at least his version of events here, he returned to England as well, having failed to complete the mission. He met with the Reaper in that room on Fresno Street to report the failure, who he's positing was Van Siegs still. Causing the mastermind to pull the trigger from below him somehow. Guess we don't really assume that the bullet came from below Gregson, do we? Still, if it doesn't line up with the candle's destruction. But yeah, if nothing actually happened, how did the tip of your sword come to be lodged in the inspector's trunk? There is that detail. The one that led to this whole conversation being presented here. But apparently he's just shutting up about that. Great Sword Karma has been entered into the court record. Maybe that will have some kind of additional clue. We must take immediate action now to verify whether Seishiro Gioku remains unharmed. Because here we don't know where he is. Still. It recently come to my attention that he hasn't been seen since yesterday. When a foreign dignitary goes missing for 24 hours, it's only natural that the question of his safety should arise. I mean, we don't know where he is, that's all that we know, is that we don't know right now. Reaper has more than one assassin at his disposal, so whoever the assassin would have been in the Gregson case would have also been one of the Reaper assassins, even though Gregson was apparently also involved with the whole Reaper thing. And he has the power and influence to give orders from inside a prison cell. Well, still going on with this accusation. We'll take an emergency recess for 30 minutes. So I guess we're not gonna come back to the courtroom without finding out what happened to the judge. The man can be located within a half hour, we will have to assume the worst. Well, I guess that brings this part of the trial to an end at least, but I have something to say before we actually go to the recess area. Well, he says he didn't kill anyone. So we're probably going to try to believe that for as long as we can. Nothing awful has happened to Judge Yoku. I feel as though things will only spiral further and further out of control. Also this different courtroom lobby version that starts with that big wah sound. Wait, have only 30 minutes left. Unfortunately, though, I don't think there's anything we can do but wait now. So we're gonna wait right here, or are we actually gonna go back to the lobby? And yeah, there's also the friggin' charm thing that we were given. Still don't know how that's gonna come into play. Perhaps now is the time. I mean, probably a good idea to do this right now. I guess I don't think this will necessarily make a difference. We technically aren't out of options quite yet, but what happens if we do it? That screams sort of like Mr. Sholmes, well. It's the felt all talking. You need to pull my ear off. It's alright. Myself and my trusty partner are on the ship. Presently in the first class cabin area of the SS Grouse, which they were apparently able to get to without problems. She left over last night after the final pieces of cargo were loaded. We're currently docked at Dunkirk, but due to be underway again in half an hour. After with of Bakersfield last night, we hurried by cab to the station and by train to the port in order to board this vessel in time. Somehow able to know this beforehand. Apparently this other dog is able to pull his ears for real and serve as a microphone. And we, I guess, just accept that detail at least. You may remember it was in fact I who made a connection to the SS Grouse at Scotland Yard yesterday when we examined that notebook and I recalled my steamship tickets. Boy. Does that mean that we're about to... like suddenly shift over to an investigation segment? What was the idea behind making a receiver operate in that way in the first place? Also, how did you make a receiver in like this vaguely defined period like between any time between something like 1851 and 1904? I guess Iris did it, it's just the throwaway explanation there. How about have that now before the Grouse puts to sea again? If we don't conclude our investigations rapidly, we should find ourselves in Naples before long. Okay. First class cabin number 2. But I don't believe this investigation of the cabin is gonna be plain sailing. The crewman seems to be exactly the same guy that we met on the on case 2 of part 1. Except he has hair now and a tattoo, which he didn't really have before. Not really recognize small traveling great sailor chicken stroganoff when you see, well, It also seems to have his own name written there, unless that's a completely upside down backwards thing. Oh, that cool pose reminds me of someone? Wonder who that could be. I don't already know a great deal about you, sir. My brother, I believe. Like yourself, he's a shipman, unless he's literally an identical brother, currently traveling the world aboard a Russian steamship. 3 days ago, I was bound for London aboard this ship, you see. We're looking for one of my fellow passengers, a man by the name of Jigoku. Well, apparently he's not here, even though he had to take it along with the guy speaking right now. You mean Eastern man? He left ship 2 hours ago. Okay, so he was on the ship too. And he left the ship in an emergency. Well, he must still be around, surely. Is ruined. Well, even if I am not here, you cannot get inside. The door is locked. Well, that didn't seem to have stopped us last time we were on the ship. My special talent, opening any lock. In a mere 5 seconds. So if you're able to somehow draw this guy away for 5 seconds. How could we possibly do that? What do we have here? We have the fire alarm, which he would very plainly see us tamper with. Let's leave it alone for now. There's the door to the other cabin. Empty as well. I had a quick look inside earlier. So I can visit and investigate the wardrobe. Well, we should do that at this point. May very well be a young Japanese fellow inside perspiring merrily. But is currently perspiring merrily in court. But yeah, why would he only guard that cabin? There's also this mousetrap. I guess we don't have the option to try and mess inside the other cabin, at least not yet. We have the options to mess with the mousetrap and the fire alarm. How about this? Switch for the electric lights. I mean, that seems like it might be the best option right now, if only because it's a little distance away from that guy. There's this thing. I could persuade our stocky sailor friend that he needed to use it. But how? I guess that might end up being the final objective here. And we can't possibly consider trying to go back there, so let's try the light switch, I guess. Does it mean that he's not actually going to move from the door and afford the guy the time he needs? Nobody there. Apparently he also didn't have the opportunity to go to the door and unlock the lock, but I don't know if he would even be able to do that as well, or either in the dark. Sure, let's make all hell break loose. So at sea that will be a very bad problem, but I guess as it is. Oh, that is gonna force him to go to a speaking tube though. we were told that he left about 2 hours ago, but I guess the other guy must have noticed that we actually came in here. We just take our time with trying to investigate as much as possible. Would there be anyone hiding in the wardrobe? Just climb inside yourself, my dear fellow. Well, you can experience the moment for yourself now, complete with my dramatic rhetoric. Uttered some brilliant remark and opened the wardrobe to reveal the stowaway murder, even though that ended up being completely thrown aside. See here how it's... What opulence the first-class passengers enjoy, chilled drinks. Could it be that this steamship is equipped with an electrically refrigerated cold room, do you think? Yeah, that's something that we had to bring up at some point, because we were trying to argue that apparently Gregson's body must have been chilled at some point. And I guess it must have been chilled in the refrigerator that was here on the ship. Suddenly, Mikotoba. Sight of you is making my mouth water. I'm taking on the flavor of the food I ate, you know. I guess you won't know that for sure unless you take cannibalism literally. The voices of the crewmen on the bridge aren't an annoyance, I suppose. Or that the voices on this cabin are not heard elsewhere. Or it could be to prevent snakes from entering. Well, I mean, that is like one of the most famous stories in the canon, and of course it had to have been reprised in the second case in this whole sub-series. I have a penchant for exploring the contents of others' waste paper baskets. Well, so do journalists right now, apparently. In the 21st century. Here we have a notice of the passengers from 3 days ago. Evacuation drill notice for the 1st October. Following departure from the... well, didn't have time to read all that. Read that again more, a little more... Oh, yes, not right now. We can't access the court record right now. Can we read that again by activating this scene again? All crew members are required to assemble on the main deck at 10 PM in order to review evacuation procedures that will take place. It'll be 20 minutes long, something like that. Could have almost had it that time, though. Shall I go again? Why not? Following departure, yada yada yada. The drill will take 20 minutes to resume duties as soon as the drill is over. At 10 PM. Then it takes 20 minutes. It's probably gonna be somehow significant, but probably not gonna find out exactly how quite yet. Shirts, a dressing gown. Omahiki work trousers, a Tansen robe, a Haramaki waistband, clearly the clothing of a Japanese man. And clearly Japanese men are unaccustomed to the current culture of the wardrobe. Well, I don't think they would be the only people in the world that are unaccustomed to that culture at times. There's the warning, the rules of passage. Let's not keep weapons or dangerous objects, and no pets, and severe punishment for stowing away in wardrobes and or travel cases. Well, the fact that they're not straight on the wall, I guess. There's nothing important about trifles. I think that's the exact opposite of a quote that he actually has in the canon. Probably just my imagination, but I think that might be slightly off, yeah. Well, what about the trunk? Those seem to be particularly important lately. It's lighter than you might think, but still a hindrance to a speedy escape. Well, can we take a look inside? It's locked, so we can't look inside. 35 seconds from now, the situation will be quite different, though. Nope, it has a 7-digit combination lock. It'd be 777 7777. Guess we're not gonna find out quite yet. Maybe we'll have to work that out at some point, though. Plenty of reading material to keep passengers occupied on the long sea voyages. How kind of them. I want a mixture of classic literature and easy reading to be most satisfactory, I must say. There's no copy of the Adventures of Sherlock Holmes, my dear fellows, even though. More blasphemous than overlooking the Bible. The wall is a slightly different color just here, do you see? But you have observed that arises when a frame that has been hanging for some time is removed. Perhaps your friend is an art thief. Or perhaps it was something significant that was taken out. May very well be the elusive thief who has been plaguing France's galleries of late. Well, that's a very roundabout reference to why the way that his name was actually chosen in the way that it was in this version. Unless I might have spotted something of a similar shape and size elsewhere. Oh, that would be the thing that's literally right across from the... Well, I guess we're pretty much able to, or unable to keep going with the investigation right now, though. We've seen pretty much everything now. Poor innocent chicken. There's something that must be done. Debunking of your deceit and the bearing of the truth. Oh boy. We have to do a joint reasoning here. Here and now. For one thing, Mr. Jigoku has not yet left this vessel at all. Or so he claims. And for another... You know exactly where the man is even as we speak, don't you? It's really been too long, well, 10 years no less. I don't think that's how long happened between the final problem and the empty house, unless it was, and I just got those dates completely... Well, I don't know what those dates would be, actually. Like, that could possibly be a roundabout reference to that, in a meta sense, but we have but minutes until the vessel puts to sea, no games now. Let's do it this way. Allow me to remind you of your earlier claim. You told us that Jigoku left the ship some 2 hours ago. That's a rather clumsy lie. There's something in this room that quite clearly contradicts it. I guess that would be the ice that's still not fully melted. He's gonna point out something else here. Unless, of course, we take away the false part of it. Let's see what the last 3 years have done to your observational skills in. Well, in 10 years since we last did this, Schultz, not 3. Unless we're talking about 3 years in a different sense there. Let's not merely look but observe, and the answers become clear. Well, the impossibility would have to be the glass-containing ice, surely. Can we not look at it? No, we can't get a description or anything, so we really have to rush through this version of the joint reasoning. Guess that just means that it's increased difficulty. Okay then. Perhaps I should have cleared away that glass. Here's that the ice shouldn't have melted, despite it being abandoned 2 hours ago. But appeared that the man was here in this very cabin until moments before our arrival. This well-chilled glass in hand. So is he hiding in the trunk or in the wardrobe, just as the people that came before him? I might even conclude that somebody informed him of our boarding. Wouldn't you agree? Even though it's not clear why this guy specifically would have done that for him. Or why he would be hiding from Migotova. And Sholmes, for that matter. Allow me to confirm one small matter. Would I be correct in saying that these first-class cabins of the SS Grouse are the same ones in which you and Mr. Jigoku were accommodated on your voyage from Japan? Oh, okay. It seems like it came out of nowhere, but it must be relevant somehow, surely. 50 days in this very cabin during our voyage. There are traces in this cabin of a dark secret that Mr. Jigoku had to hide. What exactly are you getting at? Well, there are traces of some nefarious activity, something that appears at a place which I'm quite sure won't have escaped your notice. The rules being taken down and removed to a different location. Bookshelf, passage, the mark on the wall, but it has to be the mark on the wall. That's a trace of something, or the speaking tube. Actually, it could be the speaking tube, because that's been muffled, so that whatever was said in here was not actually heard elsewhere. I guess I can try that first.
Take that!
No, apparently that was not it. Would have been right the first time. No games now, were my words, were they not? Well, in case we also got like a refill on the penalty chances at some point. Tilt your head to one side and listen carefully to the faint cries of the scene. Hear the evidence calling out for you to find it. Well, I mean, I just pointed out a piece of evidence that would be related to sound, but apparently that was not correct. I guess I'm also gonna be saves coming here, because why not? I somehow doubt that this is gonna be that necessary, but... It could be the pile of clothes, surely. I mean, we can't even point that out specifically. I guess I better just go with this for now. Even though that's also not it. Is it the other half of that? The rules that are tilted? Okay, apparently it's not the mark about the rules that are tilted, even though they were clearly taken from the other location that I pointed out. They're obviously out of place. If they were replaced in their proper position. When did the frame move? So what could be hiding behind it? Oh. Bullet hole. Oh, could this mean that this is actually the place where Gregson was killed? I mean, if he was killed on the ship. Projectile's been removed. Clearly the careful occupant of this room has already disposed of it. Are we somehow implicating Jigoku himself in the murder of Gregson? Maybe in potential self-defense. Sure, we can get to the bottom of this in no time. There's some very noteworthy evidence that explains the reason why you're lying for the man. study your subject from every angle. Oh. There's the fellow from all sides. Well, he does have his weird tattoo thing. The chunky arms. Nothing to do with the hat though. Plus he doesn't have like that weird snake tanning line like his brother did, I guess the other guy was. I guess it must be the tattoo though. Or not, since the music is not subbing. Okay, this might actually go badly somehow. At least I can just go back in time. Can't saves come here? No, I'm pretty sure that I can. I just... apparently like one of those things where I don't have the chance to save right at the prompt, so I have to do it beforehand. I can spur a man to do the bidding of another about whom he knows precious little. There's only one thing in the world with such repugnant bottomless power. Well, it's not his tattoo. It's not something in the background, surely. Yeah, when you're like looking at somebody's actual person, it's not something in the background. It's something to do with his hands. Oh, it's the money. Surely.
Take that!
Unless it also isn't. I didn't. What? Okay, I'm sorry, that's. Okay, I'm just gonna have to go ahead and do this now. Okay, so for this part it has to be this thing. I know that already. It's much a sped up version of those tap dancing steps. And just go full speed ahead to the next prompt here. Wasn't quite as easy to notice as, you know, pretty much everything else that's been involved in. Okay, so it definitely says what of banknotes here. Pretty much every other joint reasoning that has come before. It's almost too obvious for words. Universal language of the world, money. Wager that the Eastern fellow in question is Seishiro Jigoku, who I guess bribed you to keep quiet. Assume you realize what this means. There are clear signs that a crime has been committed in this cabin. Where you're going, sir, you'll find yourself accused of being an accomplice. And I suppose it inevitably comes out. Could be hiding right there in the trunk, I guess, since you just looked down at it. The chink in the armor. We need only follow the man's gaze to find out where our prey is hiding. Slightest flicker of the pupils and minutely delayed blink. Nothing escapes my attention, even that which is barely perceptible. The man's turned his entire head here. Not exactly what you would describe as a furtive glance, is it? I mean, it's... I guess we get to actually look at that frozen now. And that's why he took the entire contents of the trunk out.
Take that!
Turned immediately to look at this large trunk, didn't you? Truth is that Seishiro Jigoku was unable to escape from the ship in time. And is at this very moment doing his best to stifle his breath inside the trunk, which would be a pretty tight fit for a guy like him, I would say. Even worse than Ryunosuke. I imagine he didn't count on us making a nuisance of ourselves for quite so long. It would be in everyone's best interest to open the trunk as quickly as possible. I mean, just like freaking, you know, Trevor hiding inside his own safe. He's got a combination lock. We don't know the 7-digit code, but surely we just need to shake it a little bit now that we know that he's locked himself in there. Can't be opened from inside the trunk. There must have been an arrangement for somebody to open it after our departure. He must have told somebody the 7-digit number for the lock, so that's what the tattoo is probably actually about. It's a complete coincidence, because it would be like 3 or 7 digits, I mean. Yeah. Maybe, possibly. 1, 2, 3, yeah. Well, I can't look at it again. I can review the scene. Okay, never mind. We better review the scene so that I can actually do that one more time. So it would be 5631045. I'm reading that properly. Oh, it goes up to 5. Well, if it goes up to 5, then what could the one that looks like 6 actually be? Is that like a 0? Very poorly scribbled 0 to make it look like an E from that angle. It can't really be anything else, so I guess it has to be that. So 5031045. Oh. Surely that has to be it.
Take that!
Unless that's not it. What else could that be red as, though? Guess we better make another save scum here at the last possible moment. So I'm guessing that this would be the final step. I thought I'd try my birthday. Oh. Yeah, the zeros too. Yeah, it could be. Standing on my head to aid the cognitive process. Hold on, let me actually do this. I'm going to do this. Right. And then I'm gonna go here. And I'm gonna rotate this thing. Rotate 180 degrees. I guess it would make, I guess I'm gonna see if I can show this now, but it would make marginally more sense for it to be a 0 than a 2. Or a 2 than a 0, I mean. The opposite of what I just said. So it would be 5231045. That would be all that I have to change. It can't be faulted for misinterpreting something like that, though. That did it. And he was somehow able to fit in there. Really hoping beyond hope not to find you, you know. Your neck twisted in such a way that you were somehow able to not break it while you were in there. You meant to say your old friend and traveling companion. You made the cowardly decision to flee the country without a word to anyone when things turned sour. You know it all by now, I imagine. What you didn't know, of course, is that 3 days ago, on the night before our arrival in Britain, an attempt was made on my life here on this very ship. By the Reaper of the Bailey. Apparently it did actually occur. We were once persecuted by the Reaper 10 years ago now. I had no idea at the time what a dangerous individual he was. Really ought to have confided in you, and maybe this could have been avoided. Maybe not. Maybe it would have just had ended up having collateral instead. First class cabins aboard luxurious steamships are in very short supply. A little hard to believe that this one just happened to be available. So was it like procured even beforehand? Is that what's being implied there? Cabin did just happen to be available, so I purchased a ticket and here I am. Hanging out in my own trunk. We had already purchased a return ticket before we even docked in Dover, are you? Wait, what? Oh yeah, I guess I would have meant, because if... the incident that would have happened inside this cabin would have happened before they arrived in England for the first time on this ship. So by then, I guess he would have taken steps to make sure that nobody else could use this cabin. So probably bribe the guy. But we must insist that you disembark with us at once and leave all your stuff here. We have this. I'm not sure what this is in this situation, but I also can't check the court record or anything like that until we go back to our usual protagonist position, I guess. It's a subpoena from the Old Bailey. If you're a man of the law, you know what the ramifications of ignoring a document like this from the British courts would be. Oh no, he can't possibly refuse. Inside Mr. Jigoku's trunk. I found this rather fascinating trinket. Some small component from something. But what? I have no idea. It was pocketed as a small souvenir of our brief sojourn in France. Even though I guess at this time we're just supposed to have no idea what it is. Well, we're back in the present. Didn't even get to really stop by the defendant lobby on our way here, but we also can look at this stuff now. Let's see. We have the Greatsword Karma, which has just been introduced into the court record, but we haven't really looked at it. And sure enough, there's the broken off tip that we saw before. Well, probably nothing else to remark about it, just the fact that it's got that. Nothing else visible from the other side either that was not plainly visible from the initial one. There's the drill itinerary, which we can actually read without having to rush that now. And this small part which I guess we just have available to us here now. You've seen these little things all over the place. They're part of the pocket watch that you twist to see the time, isn't it? The crown. Well, it does look a bit like an actual crown. I'm feeling I might have seen a monarch around here somewhere with a very bare head. I mean, we found a pocket watch, but we already saw the other thing that apparently went on. It's this one, right? Yeah, on top of the... I guess there's two parts of it, though. There's the part that you would wind at the top, and also the part that takes a winding key at the bottom. And I guess, do they accomplish the same thing? I have no idea. We're about to see that the little round component is actually part of Inspector Gregson's broken pocket watch. And it's probably gonna turn out to be a good thing that we noticed that before we did anything else. Well, let's see what this part of the story takes us now. We're holding something back, you know more than what you're saying. Nothing more about what happened on the ship at that time. During the past 30 minutes while this court was adjourned, all possible efforts were expended. But sadly, Mr. Jikoku's whereabouts could not be ascertained, except they actually were. We must accept the unfortunate conclusion that the Reaper has already done the deed.
Objection!
Except that we know that there's something else going on in the background here. Still a crucial witness. I think we know exactly who we have to refer, or who we are referring to tomorrow if possible. Oh boy, are we calling for adjournment? Witness is already on his way and scheduled to arrive tomorrow. So he won't actually be able to make it in time for this part of the trial. Witness being Seishiro Jikoku, the very man allegedly murdered by the Reaper. We found him even though the police was not able to do anything like that, so you know, just have to say that you guys suck. How in the name of God did you find the man? Well, you see, he was located in France during the recess at the port of Dunkirk, not in French soil itself, but in the ship, which I guess he never actually left. Gregson almost certainly met with Mr. Jikoku on the night of his death, because along with Prosecutor Asagi, Gregson was on a mission to assassinate the man. And apparently a bullet was fired inside that place at some point, which we have to hear more about. It means that Seishiro Jikoku is the sole witness who can clarify what happened aboard the SS Grouse, so can't possibly ignore that possibility. Hereby call the end of today's proceedings. Court will reconvene at the same hour tomorrow. No objections from either side. So that's gonna be the actual chapter break, not the shift to the sudden investigation part with the joint reasoning. And not the return to the trial, but now... I mean, what are we gonna do in the meantime? Just like wait for the guy to arrive, or keep investigating, I have to wonder. Investigation part 1, okay, no, I guess we're gonna have to do something in the meantime. Oh goodness. Unexpected halt of proceedings sent a clamor around the courtroom, but outside the bailey where Londoners knew nothing of the secret trial within, it was still a typical night. Then, a little past 8 o'clock that evening, Mr. Sholmes and his partner returned to Baker Street. And apparently they had this massive dinner laid out. I could go for some dinner right now. I believe you even had a more wearing day than Mikotoba and I know. Well, I mean... depends on how you define that, strictly speaking. I think that he really entertained the idea of acting as the Reaper's assassin. But if he said himself that he wasn't gonna do anything... Great Detective Sly. And there's still quite a bit of things that need to be clarified. Still gonna be here for a while longer, I expect, as far as the case, before it wraps up. him to Scotland Yard. Investigating detectives there have a lot of questions for the man. And pick this up at the telegraph office on our way home. The urgent thing being, well, he's gonna show us a telegraph and then not actually say what it's about. And what a feast it is. Roast beef, kipper stew, steak and kidney pie. Yorkshire pudding. The one said with helping a pheasant as well. But not there. The place is for Susie's daddy. Oh. Professor Mickey. Oh. Got it off. Has that been solved yet? Yeah, that was solved like a long time ago. It was the second case in part 1, so... And that was a case that was based on the Speckled Bandit. But he also turned out to not be dead in that case. Susie and I were half-sisters, I mean. I'll bring this up. It's never actually clarified what the deal was with who her father actually turned out to be. Understanding arose because of that autopsy report from 10 years ago, but actually, it turned out that neither Wilson nor Professor Mikotova are Iris's father. So we still have no idea who that was. Pheasant is by way of an apology. I don't like it, any apologetic pheasant. Well, that's not something we'll be finding out today, but yeah, the window of time in which we can potentially find that out is still shrinking ever more. Could be our last chance to ask questions before tomorrow's trial. And we could do that. I guess this is where we're giving control. But what if we take a look around the office first? We're gonna be told that all of this is already, yeah, apparently the investigation stuff carries over from case 4. All of this counts as already examined. Even the giant feast on the table trunk. I guess we better just get straight to the point unless we can somehow move around. Can we move around? No, we can't really leave this place at this time. Well, it's abundantly clear that I wasn't brooding over Mikotova's refusal to share his pheasant with me. Well, and do I play the role of father to you for far longer? I mean, technically speaking. Some rather unpleasant matters to discuss. And we couldn't have just done that. before that examination happened. So what was in the telegram that was brought up and then immediately cast aside? Record found as indicated. Duplicate follows. K. Asugi, A. Shin, T. Gregson, J. Wilson. Yeah. And I mean 3 out of those 4 people are dead now. It's the same telegram that we saw at the end of part 1. It's part of that encoded list of names. Hasn't really come up again since, at least not concretely. Appeared to be a simple case of aggravated murder, turned out to be a masking monumental intrigue. Plot that involved the sale of British governmental secrets to foreign states. We deciphered as a fragment of a message. Which was just those 4 names, I think. A Shen, which apparently only had the one N, at least in that iteration of it. T. Gregson and J. Wilson. Didn't find the names out until the case was over, and we never got to the bottom of what they meant. All we knew was that the information had been sent by somebody in the British government to somebody in Japan. It was apparently encoded with, like, Japanese Morse code. Where did the sender of your telegram discover them? Are they cropping up again? Enter Judge Jigohu's office undetected and investigate telegram records. Expect to find communication from Britain dated 1 year ago. Is the 4 names needed by tomorrow? Naruhodo. Alright. Last Inspector Hasanaga to undertake such an onerous task for you. Well, he also hasn't really come up. Even though he was involved in 2 cases in the first, in part 1, and well, I'm pretty sure he came back for the opening case in this part. But the list of names was found in Seishiro's office, which means that somebody sent it from Britain to him, specifically in Japan. He was the intended recipient. But who was the sender? Also doesn't answer the question of what the list of names actually signifies, except we probably already know, based on the fact that we already know what at least 2 of those names mean when they're put right next to each other. So shall we hear about that next, or just talk about something else? Oh yeah, that fake death was all for nothing. Except to introduce a certain number of things. It's been quite a long time since that. At the time, all that concerned me was preventing the young man's study tour from taking place whatever the cost. Whatever the cost. I capitalized on the events that transpired to see that he was sent back to Japan, even though he hasn't really said why he wouldn't have wanted him to reach Britain. Then I made sure that somebody else was sent to Britain in his stead. By arranging for someone else to fill the place originally intended for Mr. Asugi, successfully prevent the man from arriving on our shores for several years at least. But why though? Is there not somebody who quite casually urged you to continue on the voyage to England? I mean, was there? That was quite a long time ago. Was it Hosonaga himself at that time? Or it was just him? The remarks on the extraordinary lengths to which friendship will drive a man. I was quite sure that you would rise to the challenge for your late friend. But if it was all contrived, What happened was treated by the authorities as murder. The woman was mistakenly arrested as the perpetrator. Didn't allow the misapprehension to have any serious repercussions, so what did happen to her? Subsequently explained everything and assisted the unfortunate soul in finding the foreign refuge she sought. Alright. Even though they were suspecting her of having killed him that whole time. Wonder if she made it to America then. That was all from case 2 of part 1. It's all part of the same story. But yeah, why was he trying to stop him from reaching Japan? That part is not clear. There's already a very tangible moment of the impending tragedy, or so he claims, an omen that at this very moment in time is close at hand. And existed a year ago. I mean, does he have anything more to say? Apparently that's all the regular topics exhausted. Let me talk more about this. Obviously you know that's where this list of names would be found, so how did you know that? Only because they appeared as part of top secret government communications that were leaked. Time you were unaware of the background. Those 4 names were wired to Japan. Around 6 months before that. Approximately this time last year, in fact, when you were both still in Japan. It would be hypocrisy on my part to reprove others for intercepting state secrets, because after all, I'm perpetually eavesdropping on communications between the British and Japanese governments, really. And how are you doing that? But you should know. No secret is safe from Sherlock Holmes when he has decided on knowing it. John H. Wilson was murdered. Why would that be? As soon as I learned of the incident, the hypothesis rapidly took shape in my mind. It turned out I was partly correct, and partly mistaken. Nevertheless, it was the beginning of all the tragic events that were to follow. I mean, can we hear more details about this? I guess this must have been the omen itself, the telegram. When I learned of Wilson's murder in Japan, my mind immediately turned to those 4 names, because you see, there was someone else on the list who I believe to be recently deceased. Shin, as it was transcribed in Japanese script. In actual fact, Miss Asa Shin. She was a professional killer well known among London's sabre classes, but she was not English. But she had completely vanished from existence several months before Wilson's murder. So I came to the logical conclusion that she had herself been killed, even though she wasn't killed, at least not before Wilson was. And accordingly I became fearful for the lives of the remaining 2 persons on the list. K. Asagi and T. Gregson. Determined it would be safest if young Asagi were to stay away from Britain. So that's why he tried to stop him from coming here. Countless many tales about Asagi came in my letters and the news of Dr. Wilson's death. Had she really not heard about that until this moment? Hold on, what did she say right before that? I didn't know. Well, he wasn't my daddy, but still couldn't possibly have told you this until that was established. What you just told us doesn't completely tie in with the facts. There's one big hole in your hypothesis. About Asa Shin. Because she wasn't killed, at least not at that point. She was in Japan, posing as a visiting student under the assumed name of Giselle Brett. But I only became aware of that fact 2 days ago in the foyer of the Great Waterloo Hotel. Well, I mean, I don't think that it necessarily means that it's false now, because I'm pretty sure that we established that 3 of the 4 people mentioned in the telegram are now dead, so... I believed all 4 names on the list with the names of victims. However, I was mistaken. Assassin was a killer. So it's a list of both victims and killers. It would seem that Miss Shin was dispatched from Britain with the sole intention of dispatching Dr. Wilson. Her visiting student status being merely a front. Which would explain why no motive could be determined for her actions. The real reason he was killed by Assassin is because he was the target of an assassination. Imagine that. And forearmed with that knowledge, fresh consideration of this telegram puts the list in a very different perspective, so... I mean, what does it mean? There's another among the 4 who subsequently became a visiting student. So Casamas was supposed to kill Gregson? Is that what what the telegram itself is implying? Even though he said he was recruited by Gregson to kill somebody else. Assassin exchange. Did he possibly have gotten involved in something like that, though? Like, what did he have as, like, put upon him as leverage to force him to agree to something like this? Those 2 parties then make a contract to swap their respective assassination targets, really. But then be an assassin exchange, so I'm gonna go to a different country to kill someone that the other assassin that's involved in this is actually based over there. And then the Japanese assassin is dispatched as a visiting student to Britain in order to eliminate his targets. So that was a real exchange that was going on with those 2 students. The British assassin at least escaped conviction, thanks to diplomatic immunity afforded by consular jurisdiction, and yet that certainly didn't happen to the professor when he started killing people in Britain. Such jurisdiction would be null and void under the new agreement. This association and the safeguard of diplomatic immunity were, I believe, the motivation behind this plot. This telegram release describing the exchange of assassins as you're suggesting. I mean that the Japanese killer's target was never Seishiro Ryuko at all. Rather Gregson. Yeah, I mean that was pretty obvious since that detail was spelled out. Which would mean that Kazama was aiming to implicitly kill Gregson and not Ryuko. But he still said before that he didn't kill anyone. Myself personally responsible for failing to keep the inspector safe. Told him of my fears and implored him to seek a transfer to an overseas position. With a young pickpocket in tow. Oh, so that was motivated to keep not only him but also Gina away from this bizarre murder conspiracy that so many people need to be, or seem to be, targeted by. But now Gregson's dead and Gina's still around, and ostensibly it's still within reach of that shady organization. we're gonna forget about this line of questioning right now. We must conclude our preparations for tomorrow. The idea of you being my daddy. And Susie would have been my big sister. But it looks like that was not the case. From Runa on the floor. Oh. I mean, apparently there's only one way. Could be my big brother if you want, Runa, even though him and Susato are not related. Because being sensitive is your strong suit, naturally. Yeah, that's in the canon. That's why you're gonna ask Watson to come and help you rob a blackmailer's house. What's all this about preparing for tomorrow? Well, I mean, tomorrow is when the trial is gonna continue, at least. But apparently we're not gonna hear any details about what these people are talking about. I have to wonder why that is. So the overnight break in the trial's proceedings became a crucial turning point, exposing new truths while posing new conundrums. That list of 4 names on the telegram in Judge Giufu's office, and the extraordinary assassination plot in which my best friend had somehow become involved. Felt as though I had been plunged into an even greater darkness all of a sudden, but at the same time I felt sure I would see the light again soon. Because I was lucky enough to have the most wonderful family in the world standing steadfastly behind me, except for all the people that have either made themselves absent or antagonistic or have died by now. But I guess they're not as important. Well, let's carry on then. Trial Part 2. Still have no idea how much longer this is actually gonna stretch out, because it feels like there's so many things that have yet to be addressed properly to clear up what they mean. And I have no idea what the pacing is gonna be on that, but once again we carry on. The revelation that a well-known Reaper is actually an organization illegally executing its own brand of justice, and the discovery that a respected yard inspector was at its heart until he himself perished in an assassination plot. We would stop at nothing to uncover the whole truth behind these disturbing findings. On what grounds is Kazumasugi permitted to continue in his role as prosecutor? Well, why hasn't this been brought up before? He has admitted to colluding with the victim in a plot to assassinate an innocent man. Now that's clearly just a slap on the wrist worthy detail there. Submitted a written petition to Lord Strongheart, requesting that the judgment of my transgression be delayed by 1 day. And apparently it must have been accepted. In today's proceedings I intend to expose everything, so does that imply that this has to be the final trial? Whatever the outcome of this trial, I give my word that I will accept whatever punishment is deemed appropriate, however severe. And I suggest you prepare yourself for the same, Reaper. defense finds this acceptable, I presume. Well, what if we say no? I guess we're not even gonna consider that. We assume the close hearing of Baroque Van Seeks. This preamble has taken long enough. Let's see exactly what we're gonna do first. I guess we're gonna have to call Ryoku. Since that was the whole crux of what happened at the end of the previous day, trying to get him to actually show up here. It's time for that steely resolve, because this is gonna test it to the limits. But it was you who issued this, was it? Oh. This will ensure his responses are pertinent to the questions asked. Well, I mean, I would say that that was pertinent enough. He's also currently Japan's Minister of Foreign Affairs, so you can imagine what would happen if things go south here. I invited him personally to the International Forensic Science Symposium as a representative of his country. He also played a key role in the conclusion of the Anglo-Japanese Treaty of Friendship and Navigation. And see the young murdering student turning up here at all places. Well. Without informing anyone of your plans, you took flight to France. What's up with that? Even if you're objecting. I'm sorry to say. I decline to comment. What does that mean? You're refusing to testify? My decision is unrelated to this case. I can't be bound to testify. Well, can we just quickly show something to prove that that's not the case? Being an alien and obviously never met the man, how do I know the first thing about him? So we just run from all this and leave the case to just wrap up in a very unfavorable way. It just ties to another murder. I guess it was tried in Japan almost a year ago now, which would be the murder of Dr. John H. Wilson here. I mean, it probably has ties to more of the cases than that have happened over the course of this whole story than we initially realize. Oh yeah, and he was also involved in that. We didn't know at the time. We had no way of knowing how deeply he would have been implicated in that, but I guess now we do. Thanks to this one bit of evidence that we've gained. And, well, I guess we've gotten our stuff refilled. I can hold on to that.
Take that!
It's not clear if the telegram itself contains, like, spells Shin with 2 N's, or if that's only when they speak about that person. Or if it's with 1 N in the telegram and Shin with 2 N's everywhere else. Also, he's not denying it. This list of 4 names follows a certain pattern. T. Rexon and J. Wilson are the names of the victims. K. Yasugi and A. Shin are the names of assassins. I guess maybe does his reaction imply that he wasn't actually aware of his involvement in whatever this telegram relates to. Just kind of used. Shane and her victim Jay Wilson, and the murder that just took place here in London was a counterpart to that crime. An assassin sent from Japan, also a visiting student, Kazuma Asugi. Victim was British Police Inspector Tobias Gregson. One assassin from each country to kill a target residing in the other. That leads out to what it looks like. I mean, I feel like we don't really have hard evidence and that this was supposed to be the intended meaning, but I guess as long as the shoe fits. There's still very much a question of who sent the initial telegram, like who was the sender from Britain, but I haven't really pursued that quite yet. The mastermind in Japan was you. But who was a mastermind on the other side of things? Yeah, I kind of figured that he would end up saying something like this. He deliberately avoided saying a name so that he couldn't have been said to have lied about that. The very idea seems utterly absurd, and yet here we are. There's a possibility that the scene of Gregson's actual murder was on the ship. And that it must have been perpetrated by Kazuma, with Ryoku himself being complicit in that, since he apparently helped orchestrate that, or that's what we believe right now. Well, I think that there's something kind of damning that we know about, like we know as a connection between Ryoku and Gregson, and that's that the missing part of Gregson's watch was found inside his cabin, inside his trunk even, so... You know, that's probably gonna have to be brought up at some point. But let's take this step by step here. So that Asugi was assigned the assassination mission 1 year ago now. The target was Inspector T. Gregson. That was a condition of the British study tour. In the end, something happened that meant the young man was unable to carry out his mission, the whole amnesia situation. On the evening in question, a member of the crew was on duty outside my cabin at all times. If there had been a shot fired, the crewman would have heard it, so clearly I can't be involved unless you... I mean, it's the same guy that you paid off. It would be very easy to hide. And that's also probably to do with the muffled speaking tube in the cabin. To stop a gunshot from being heard elsewhere. I think he had a reason for taking his sword to that British inspector, you know? Really. Which is why he accepted the mission in the first place. Isn't that right? I mean, he's now saying that he must have been conscious and aware of all this. And done it with full knowledge of everything that was gonna happen. If you're the mastermind behind this operation in Japan, tell the court to get it of your counterpart in Britain. Or just conveniently, refuse to do that. He still says that he killed nobody, but I don't know for sure if that's true or not. This assassin exchange that the defense has identified is unrelated to the events of that case, or of this case. The police inspector can't have praise above that steamship in Dunkirk, which I'm pretty sure we know that that's false. We are pretty much establishing that that definitely did happen. He'd been shot in the cabin, it's inconceivable that a member of the crew, that a member of the crew, and I've heard it. Why is that? Just a loud noise and there being someone right outside, or... Need to dive a little bit more into that logic, I think, to be able to pick it apart. Seemingly innocent foreign exchange program was a facade for such Machiavellian dealings. A plot only a government minister and high-ranking judge such as the witness could hope to execute. I wonder who that government minister could possibly be. Seem to recall that it was someone on the British side who controlled everything. And possibly imagine very many candidates for that now, can we? Well, let's hear all this, as usual. A year ago, when Kazama was still in Japan then. It was at the examination center for applicants for the study tour that I approached him. If I consider traveling to Britain on an assassination mission. Just like that, just out of the blue. I mean, have you watched the movie The Interview? And still no denial of this. No denial even though he still says that he didn't kill anyone. Behind the scenes, so I had no choice but to accept the proposal that originated from my British counterparts. And he didn't expose that because, well, at that point he shuts up. Britain acknowledges no part of this alleged misbegotten dealings, of course it doesn't. I am bound to tell the truth, though. Still not very clear exactly why Gregson, though. Why Kazama and why Gregson is what I would be asking here. Was the most capable of all the applicants, and in addition, he always carries that fucking sword around with him. But of course we know the reason behind that. He was determined to find out for himself the truth about his father against Shinasuke. He certainly did a fine job betraying Shinasuke, well, by having all this come out at some point. Was Inspector Gregson the target? Those were the orders from Britain. I was in no position to question them, and apparently still are not somehow. Once a visiting student here in Britain himself, of course. Perhaps he has some connection with Inspector Gregson from that time. The assassin exchange has absolutely nothing to do with the case under scrutiny here, even though the fact that Gregson's name comes up suggests the exact opposite. And again, something happened that meant he wasn't able to carry out his mission. Incident that occurred during Kazama's passage to Britain in January. We arrived at the ministry some 2 weeks after the ship's departure from our shores. And then he went missing, yeah. whole situation where apparently he was able to make it to Britain by himself by leaving the ship that was already bound for Britain. Black-clad young student over there had already put himself forward as Hazuki's replacement. There's no way to stop him from reaching Great Britain. And he couldn't be convinced to assassinate somebody else either, I guess. Could have been complicit in all this. But apparently he's saying now that he didn't want to assassinate you from before, and also he didn't want to assassinate Gregson. He'll be guilty of that crime that have taken someone else's life. It's really not very clear why his story keeps changing or who we're supposed to believe here, but all the court should be concerned about in the testimony given by this witness are details relating to his relationship with Inspector Gregson and the victim's murder. Someone outside the cabin, so there couldn't have been a gunshot, is what he's saying now. Not least because there was a murder of a student passenger earlier in the year, I imagine. And apparently he saw the guy. There was a well-built crewman standing guard directly in front of the door to the witness's cabin. Apparently, though, he was out at that point. Yeah, did he just let him in? All that happened, but he says that he left. And the guard was there the entire time. But what this guy is continuing to argue is that if a shot had been fired, that guy would have heard it, but maybe not if he was trying to still do the bribery and get him to keep quiet about that. Vital witness now, but I mean, he's not gonna get brought in to testify, surely. It's inconceivable that a crewman standing just outside the cabin door wouldn't have heard that. There's also the steam engines. That won't wash, or so he claims. The cabin was in the first-class area of the ship, which is also, of course, the quietest. And imagine for a moment that it's anything like steerage where the judicial assistants go. Well, yeah, we did find a bullet hole that was apparently very rushedly concealed. Obviously a rotten panel eaten out by woodworm, which is why it was hastily covered up. And yeah, there is the fact that the bullet had been removed, so that's not hard evidence. One had been fired in my cabin on the night in question, as the defense implies. Would have been arrested on the spot and would never have made it to Britain in the first place. And apparently no gunshot was heard, and that's his whole thing, and we believe that without question. Destroy him. Oh, we'll try. I think that the main thing that looks like it can be contradicted in these statements is that If there had been a shot fired, it had to have been heard, but I don't really know exactly what to say to that. Let's take a look at the evidence. Let's go ahead and present something, or at least look for something to present. I mean, it would have to be one of the... Oh yeah, there's this. I forgot about this. All crew members are required to assemble in the main deck at 10 PM in order to review evacuation procedures, so if that had happened during the drill, then that would have given an opportunity for the guy to be absent, so I guess it's just as simple as that. And be sure that contrary to the witness's claim, the guard wasn't there at all times. Here a notice of a particular event that was scheduled to take place aboard the steamship on the 31st. Gathered by Mr. Herlock Sholmes. You were acquainted yesterday, if you remember. And he managed to find this, I think, in the friggin' wastebasket. Summary. An ample opportunity to commit the crime. 20 whole minutes, and I guess we're just accusing him of being the shooter now. Could amounts to nothing. It's just that no incident occurred unless you have some decisive evidence that can show that that's false. We are reduced to nothing more than conjecture, even though he could have just said that to begin with, but somehow it didn't, because he thought that this was going to be enough, I guess. And what we have to show for certain. What proof do you have that the victim's life was taken in that cabin on the 31st October? I'm not sure about this either, but I guess we have to pursue this. I just realized the message in Russian actually said garderobe, which means wardrobe, yeah. That was pretty quickly find out, and that is something that you pretty quickly find out in that case, but... And that's also pretty much a reference to the, to Star in Scarlet, where you find the message Rache, but... turns out to have a completely different meaning from what may have initially been suspected. What proof do we have? I guess it must be this, because this is the piece of evidence that I was discussing before that was found in the cabin. That definitely came from Gregson's watch. So why would the watch have broken there? Well, it had to have happened in that location, and I guess if there was a gunshot that nobody noticed, it had to have happened during that time. And I guess he's now not really denying it anymore. Expertly maneuver it, Ryunosuke. Because we are using British spelling for a few things. Unlike this pocket watch, it's full of cracks, though. I believe Judge Jigoku feels the same way, but how would that be? The fact that this part of the victim's watch was discovered in your cabin means that you acknowledge that he was there, I presume. You don't deny that. But the story's about to change again. So what actually did happen in the cabin? Had a guest waiting for me when I returned to my cabin after finishing my evening meal in the dining room. When I walked through the door, a mustachioed Englishman was there, obviously waving a gun at me. Soon took care of him with an Ippon COA throw, though. Couldn't wait to run away after that. Imagine his watch was broken when I threw him over my shoulder, which I guess would have resulted in it ending up in my trunk. The inspector was clearly killed, having returned to Britain because his body was found in London. Common Jujutsu martial arts technique in my country. So that's being said as the reason why his watch got cracked and why that broke up, but also why it doesn't really explain why the watch itself continued to work. Why is that we can't definitively deny this story, this version of the story? And you can extend this kind of logic to a lot of other situations, really saying, no, that's not like 100% ironclad, we can still make some kind of bizarre fiction that would technically still be somewhat plausible, that would contradict what you said, but still somehow fit with what was found. Didn't manage to pull the trigger. Because he was merely the tactician, not the Reaper's hand of death. I guess waiting for me when I returned to my cabin. Yes, that would have been Gregson himself, like he said. But the so-called guard posted at your cabin door had just let your killer pass. He wouldn't have had his identification with him, though. Yeah, that doesn't really hold up. Had his trench coat and mustache, not to mention the bag of chips. Yeah, what else could that possibly indicate? But the man accompanying him would have had two swords slung around his waist. Or a sword. I don't know if that was written properly, but would have hoped the sight of a few swords might have set off alarm bells in the guard's head, but apparently that didn't happen. I can tell you that only the inspector was waiting for me when I arrived back at my cabin. Or so he claims.
Hold it!
Obviously you're talking about Inspector Gregson. Obviously. Though at the time I didn't know the man's name, there was no time for introductions. That was certainly the impression given by the gun pointing in my direction. Never seen the muzzle of a revolver shake about so much in all my life. Yeah, I'd like to imagine that most people haven't shot another human. Or probably even handled a gun, but
Hold it!
can we get a demonstration? Ippon Seo is far faster than a bullet, I can assure you. Well, can we get a demonstration? Burst in immediately without knocking. Inspector hurled himself at the stocky fellow and just managed to slip past him to make his escape. Imagine his watch was broken when I threw him over the shoulder. Has nothing to do with his murder. Well, parallel to the man's head being pulled off for his spine cracking. Well, not that the man was spared for long. Unless he, of course, already had the bullet in him when this happened, then these are all just lies, which seems very plausible. Now, there was a bullet hole, but he was just trying to claim that that wasn't a bullet hole at all. So what the story of your lowbrow detective stories told you? Well, but you worked it out yet, you little stripling. Pathetic. Spectre was clearly killed having returned to Britain because his body was found in London. Yeah, can we hear more about this? There's also the fact that we can show, or at least argue, that the body was chilled aboard the ship because the ship had a refrigerator for food and ice and that stuff. Take a moment to think that idea of yours through now, stripling. The inspector was killed on the steamship in France. How on earth could he have got back to Britain? Well, that's a good question, honestly. I think that has been addressed so far, really. When people die, their bodies remain at the same spot. It's a devil of a thing, unless, of course, they're moved. Carrying a corpse of a ship in your arms would raise a few eyebrows, at least. I mean, maybe it was just... maybe that's why we had to find this guy hiding inside his trunk, to show that a large male adult body could be hidden there. And that would also probably account for why the broken off part of the watch was found in there. It may have broken off after he was stuffed in the trunk. I would like to think the border police would carry the corpse of an English gentleman as hand luggage, unless of course they were also paid off. Wink wink, I don't even know if I could explain everything away though. There'd be no sense in risking being caught by attempting to transport the body back to Britain unless you specifically wanted to frame what's his face for it. To frame Van Six for it. Culprit had no opportunity to dispose of the body in the sea since they were watched closely, yeah. So transporting the body back to Britain might have actually been the only option that they have, as it happens. You have to argue that, at least for the time being. And that's getting him to change his testimony, so that's clearly gotta be a step in the right direction. There's no possible way I could have transported the victim's corpse back to Britain. Well, let's hear the details on this, but it may already be time to try to go for a contradiction. All passengers and crew disembarked at the same time and passed through the same checks at the border. Symposium guests were then driven straight to the hotel in carriages organized by the ministry. Well then, remind me, did I have a corpse over my shoulder at the time? Well, he must have had his luggage on him, surely. Unless they've developed some clever device these days to instantly move things from A to B, well, maybe a couple of cases ago. But we believe that it didn't actually work, but... I mean, it was also never actually built the proper way that he had decided, so we don't know for sure if it would have worked. So what's the loop message here? Whenever you drop a teacup in the office and it breaks, we don't say, Mr. Naruhodo must have been murdered here, do we? Well... If he really was killed there, the body would have to have been moved somehow. Would be impossible for most people except, you know, maybe some kind of important foreign dignitary, so... It's gotta be... Gotta have something to do with it, I'll bet. Let's see. It's gotta be this statement that we need to focus on because it's the one that was added after a press, or altered after a press. But how could he have moved the body back? Surely it couldn't have been in this metal trunk that, you know, Gregson himself had on him. Unless, of course, that's... It's not very clear. The thing is, it's not very clear how big this one is. I don't think it's that big. I think it's nearly as big as the one that he himself had in his room for his clothes. Which is probably also the one that happens to be in the corner of this photograph, and it's probably the reason why we were given this photograph in the evidence, but it wouldn't be as simple as just showing that again, surely. I keep saying that, but then that usually turns out to be the answer, so there you go. Transporting is something that only you could do, because I guess he could have just told people, hey, don't check my shit. He's also the Minister of Foreign Affairs. He's exempt from having his luggage searched from when he enters the country, which I don't remember if that was actually brought up before or not, but I get the feeling that it probably was. We learned that when we first met you upon your arrival in London, probably because he mentioned it at the time. Yeah. All those passport checks and luggage searches at the border took rather a lot of time. Very envious of your ministerial status. Didn't have to go through any of that, did you? You wouldn't happen to have a corpse in your trunk back there, would you? Yeah, well, it's already been proven by the fact that he was conveniently hiding inside it and helped prove it himself that it can fit a corpse. As I was saying earlier. The body was just a few meters away from us inside Judge Yuku's trunk. Happen to know that the witness himself, a man of considerable size, fits inside this trunk. And verifying that would be extremely simple. Unless he decides to not cooperate. There are signs that may have been taken to disguise a true time of death, yeah, like the temperature. I guess it's now going to be brought up again. Well, we do happen to know that, yeah, there would have been one on the ship. To keep food fresh under long sea voyages. I don't know if it points to him being the killer, but it certainly points to him being intimately involved in that scene. Logical reasoning, of course. All court proceedings will be built on logical reasoning in the new century. And I can see that you both laid firm foundations for that already. Or you can even begin to answer the question of when the victim was killed. Let's first establish one key fact. Where was the victim killed? I mean, I feel like where and when would be pretty closely related in this line of questioning. And he's still saying that it was on Fresno Street. How much longer are you gonna play tonight? I feel like, because I don't know how much longer the case is gonna be, probably longer than I expect if I had to come up with an estimate. Probably gonna try to, like, play until there's another chapter break at this point. Probably would be a good stopping point. I'd like to imagine that it won't be too long, super long before that happens. Victim was shot in that little room on Fresno Street, we claim, and died instantly. That directly contradicts a certain piece of evidence in our possession, that he was killed over there in Fresno Street. I mean, his blood was found in that scene of the crime, so I don't think that's something that's going to be brought up by anyone unless it somehow is. Which I guess would not be out of character for, like, the prosecution at this point, but... They're saying that Gregson died instantly, but this evidence clearly contradicts that claim. The fact that Gregson died instantly. Is there something that we can show to prove that he would have done something after being shot? I mean, what does the autopsy report say again? Indeterminate. A shot in the chest at close range from the front, resulting in instant death. He had to have been shot at point blank range. There's also that detail. I don't know if that's been important though. Caliber of the gun, yada yada. Is there like any recent evidence that we may have found that shows that he would have moved around after? After getting shot. Don't think it would have to do with this. Don't really know what I'm looking for, but might as well try something since I've got my insurance. As I do most times. It's not gonna be just this, the autopsy report, I don't expect, but I don't know that I can come up with anything better at this time, so... It's actually a contradiction to the argument that I'm trying to make right now, because this one says that it was instant. To prefer an argument with such conviction only to present such nonsensical evidence. My Japanese friend and the mystic of the East. Guess you ought to notice I'm not the only Japanese around here. I think I'm gonna have to leave, too bad, see ya. Alright, Chokokeki, see you later, if you're going for now. But yeah, like I said, I'm probably not gonna be going for much longer, just about as long as it takes for me to get to a chapter break, and probably be continuing this tomorrow. Okay, so based on that little statement, I think the implication may not be that Gregson himself moved around after he was shot, but rather that his body had to have been moved. It couldn't have possibly stayed in the same place after he was killed. But what do we actually have that shows that that's true? Could be this. Because trunk was not found in the... I think that would work as proof now, because it could have been moved from the scene and could have been, like, gotten stained with the blood at the room itself. I'm gonna try it, because I keep on coming back to this thing, but I really have no idea what to present at this point. I'm gonna try to go over like each one. I don't think it's this, or this, or this, or this, or this, or this. Pretty sure it's not this. It could be this, since apparently he was carrying this thing on his person. Don't think it's this either. I guess out of all the pieces of evidence that would actually be related to the victim at this point, it would have to be this. The revolver. And the wig, and probably a couple other things. I don't think we learned anything from the revolver directly though, did we? They've been engraved with a unique serial number, but as far as I can tell there's nothing like that in this gun, so that's not... Oh, so it was issued less than 5 years ago, or more than 5 years ago. I don't remember if we noted that before. I mean, is there anything here that shows that he definitely had to have been moved? Trying to look for anything right now, pretty much that would be related to the crime scene and his corpse. Do we show the crime scene photograph? Was it the crime scene photograph? The point is the posture of the body itself. Really? Hold on. Let's send us back in time before we get the explanation here that I clearly... alludes to something that I clearly must have missed myself. Oh, whoops. As I try not to accidentally tug the microphone wire there.
Take that!
Yeah. Posture of the body itself. Inspector Grayson had been shot there in that room. It's out of the question that his body would have been curled up in a ball like that. Why though? Easily have adopted that fetal position. They spelled it like that, but they don't even have the character that's compound O and E, which I think you can do by doing Alt 0156, incidentally.
Objection!
But it's your logic that's flawed. The victim died instantly, oh yeah. I mean, does that mean that the body could not have contorted or been... I don't know, I feel like if it fell over its solid body, imaginable that it could have looked like that. It seems like a pretty flimsy thing to hold on to make an argument. But I guess that's what we're going with. The answer should be abundantly clear by now. The inspector's body took on that posture ahead of its arrival on Fresno Street before it was coldly turned out on the floor. From the body... oh, from the inside of a large travel trunk. So it was just dumped on the floor from the inside of the travel trunk. I don't know about that, like I said. I feel like if somebody made an argument like this, they would have to show some kind of proof of, or an example of somebody that got killed instantly and what position their body would actually be in if they had just fallen over. It's very possible that it will contain traces of the victim's blood. Apparently he has not taken steps to prevent that being found out. Send my trunk, I refuse. I don't feel like it. I decline to answer that. He's being very avoidant, but it's really not helping his case here. Maybe that's a bit of a nod at, you know, the end of the first Edgeworth game, where it's like, yeah, I'm gonna keep on dragging out this case because, you know, diplomatic immunity. It's gonna be like fucking 3 hours of diplomatic immunity as an argument. But no, that shit's not gonna fly here. Well, have you no shame at all? You're just gonna ask me a straight question like that. How dare you? He'd bring the inspector's body into the country, well then, but he's still gonna deny it. that he killed him, I guess. It's probably what this is gonna be. I'm gonna be turning into now. I admit to nothing more than what I've said here. Kind of predictably there. Killing the man I certainly have no recollection. Merely dispose of the inspector's body which was left in my cabin. In order to avoid unwanted attention, as the judicial assistant over there pointed out, they had no chance to throw it into the ocean. So I decided my only option was to bring it into Britain with me and dispose of it somewhere else. There was only one person in my cabin that night, one other person in my cabin. That being Asui himself. Now he's gonna implicate him, even though the said before that he wasn't actually present before. I mean, if Hazuki was himself present for that, then you would think he would have testified or done something like that by now. Prosecution Counsel has already admitted to visiting the witness's cabin on the night in question. On an assassination mission, no less. If it comes down to Gyokuma or Kazuma, both of them had the opportunity to kill Gregson, but only one of them did it. And I'm just a step away from proving who. Well, how are you gonna prove who? The idea that the victim's murder could have been committed by Prosecutor Asagi is... I mean, I just want to say impossible. It's a way of furthering my own personally tailored line of argument here, but I don't know how genuine that's really gonna be. Let's just try it and see where that goes. Let me remind you of something you said only a few minutes ago. You claim that logical reasoning is the future of the judicial process. Maybe, I guess there's something else that he said a while ago. About the fact that Kazuma had left before Gregson was... before he himself met with Gregson, so... Would have been impossible for Asagi to commit the crime. Is it to do with what I just said, or is it something else entirely? What proof is there that allegedly demonstrates the impossibility of Hazuki's involvement? Well... is it the fact that his sword step was missing? And... surely not.
Take that!
You're making the evidence sweep here. Well, I guess that wasn't it. I don't know how that would have been related to the argument here, to be honest with you. I was just guessing there. I feel like I'm gonna be doing a bit of that at this point. Wait, what was that? Hold on. I guess we do get a bit of a hint if we fuck up, so... You know, a member of the crew was on sentry duty outside the first-class cabins nearly all the time. As long as the guard was there, it would have been impossible to fire a shot without being heard. It very much narrows down when the crime could have been committed, so we're supposed to, like, point that out. It's impossible for Asuki to have done it because of the very small time period afforded only by the evacuation drill.
Take that!
This is conclusive proof. How is that conclusive proof? How does that prove anything? Yeah, let's back up for a moment here.
Take that!
The moment you acknowledge that you found the victim's body in your cabin, this itinerary suddenly became much more significant. Roman sentry was on guard outside your cabin door. As long as he was there, nobody could have fired a shot inside the cabin, so the shot had to have been fired during that time period. It's inconceivable that the guard wouldn't have heard it and come to investigate, so that tells us that the crime must have taken place when the guard was elsewhere. That narrows it down to 20 minutes just after 10 o'clock as indicated on the itinerary. But the crucial point is this: when the evacuation drill took place, the steamship had already put to sea from the port of Dunkirk. Well, what does that mean though? Clearly the murder could only have been committed by somebody who was aboard the vessel at the time, so Kazuma was no longer on board at the time. I don't remember that being put forward. Guess we were supposed to remember this though, whatever this may be. Didn't come to Great Britain to take anyone's life. I left Gregson and disembarked the ship. Spent that night at a boarding house in the town, and yeah, we couldn't really review this piece of information in the court record, that's the thing. Just had to have somehow noticed this one detail. That's conclusive proof that Kazumasugi couldn't possibly have carried out the killing if, well, I guess if he's able to actually give that evidence that he alluded to before that he did stay at that place, and they would have his signature. I mean, he's about to bring that up now, surely.
Objection!
Disembarked the vessel and spent the night in a boarding house in Dunkirk. As I said yesterday, I signed my name on the accommodations register book. All extremely easy to verify, unless they've somehow gone away with the book at that place. It's time to give the court an honest answer as a common man. You killed Inspector Tobias Gregson and transported his corpse back to Britain. Then you dumped the body in the room on Fresno Street, made it look as if the murder had happened there. That's what really happened, isn't it? This particular line of questioning comes to an end. It was that damn trial 10 years ago. That's when this all began. Looking back now, my fate was decided that day. I was doomed already. Am I maybe gonna do the same Super Saiyan shit as in... Oh, yeah, he's doing the exact same shit that he did in that 18 years ago, I guess. Now he does do the same Super Saiyan shit as in Apollo Justice. British assassin to eliminate a professor in Japan. Japanese assassin to eliminate a detective in Britain. Both assassins will use diplomatic immunity to evade conviction and return safely to their homelands. The assassin exchange request arrived from Britain about 1 year ago. It was hardly a request, it was a demand. And for that you decided to recruit Mr. Asugi. Things didn't go according to plan. Your chosen assassin never made it to Britain, and you found yourself unable to dispatch a replacement because I was already on my way to Britain at the time in Kazuma's place. And that left me with only one option for carrying out my obligation: to do it myself, personally, and apparently letting absolutely nobody else know about this. There was but a single opportunity for me to do that. International Forensic Science Symposium. At no other point could I leave the country. It would be safest to carry out the plan before my arrival in Britain, so I enlisted the help of my British counterpart, but it's not very clear why Gregson ended up going there specifically. I guess maybe Kazuma was like part of the bait to lure him there. Yeah. To lure the man in, he was given a sham mission by the Reaper. So I guess whoever the actual person who gives the orders in the Reaper organization is someone that Jigoku himself could have had contact with. So the assassin exchange was all planned by the Reaper. And he's apparently still not saying anything about who it is, even though he clearly had to have contacted that person to make this work. Inspector accepted the Reaper's mission and dutifully infiltrated my cabin on the steamship. But it was all a trap designed to lead him to France and his own death. It was past 9 o'clock when I returned to my cabin from the dining hall that evening. I didn't give him the time to attack me, choked him until he lost consciousness. But there was a guard just outside the door, so I left it at that for the time being. Even the slightest noise might have aroused suspicion, so I bided my time waiting just until the drill. Where I would have had the chance to shoot him, I guess there's nothing else that I could have done to end his life. I had intended to finish him by strangulation, but moments before I had the chance, he suddenly came around and went for me in a reckless move. Okay, so he didn't do that consciously after all. I received a British issue gun 16 years earlier, being a member of the judiciary as a visiting student. So that was his gun that was found. That didn't have the serial engraving. Then the victim was killed inside your cabin on the SS Grouse. Which begs the question of why you arranged for his body to be discovered in the room on Fresno Street, and probably to specifically frame Van Seeks. Probably Van Seeks as a frame up to take attention away from whoever the actual true identity of the Reaper is. Chill the body in your trunk in order to smuggle it past the border police. Must have had intimate details of Inspector Gregson's intended schedule. From his British counterpart. Inspector was due at Fresno Street at 5 o'clock this afternoon, or that afternoon. In order to meet a man by the name of Hugh Boone, from whom he would take back his police identification. Said that man would be the perfect person to set up as the culprit, Hugh Boone himself. But he ended up framing Van Seeks instead. Must have been just after we took his photograph with you at the hotel then. So just after this, but he also was wearing the red wig maybe when he went in. Spotted a young girl selling little firecrackers, and also the larger ones that just sound like guns when they go off. On the simple disguise and approach a girl to buy enough firecrackers to replicate a gunshot. For some reason the inspector had a bright red hairpiece in his own traveling case. So I put that on, so there you go. I guess that red wig didn't come from him though. Only arrived at the room at around 4:45, so I quickly placed the body on the floor and moved the notice board and set up my little candle trick. Arranged it so the firecrackers would go off with a bang around 15 minutes later. The bag of fish and chips. Oh yeah, that was left in the... Put it back into his pocket the following morning. He could have just thrown it away. Would have eliminated that inconsistency. So that's that. So this proves without a shadow of a doubt that at least Van Seeks is innocent of this murder, but I'm guessing that the trial is going to continue after this, but under the allegation that Van Seeks is the Reaper and that he gave the order for this whole thing to occur. And we're going to have to prove that it was somebody else that actually has that identity. Witness will be tried in the coming days, apparently right here. For a crime of such a vile nature, you can expect the most severe penalty. Well, I mean, it's not like I killed 5 people like my other countryman that I came here with 16 years ago and was tried. And there was another trial where I also broke the bench, apparently. What's your counterpart in Britain? As you can tell, you're probably gonna be killed for this, so really you have nothing to lose at this point. Might as well be earnest. I've already told you that I cannot save, even though I know that I'm gonna be executed probably for this. So yeah, what do you have to lose? Smelly forces admitted to the willful murder of Tobias Gregson, which would mean that at least have this crime. Oh, both he's guilty. He's guilty, but Van Six would be innocent. And may I remind all those present of the strict confidentiality demanded by this closed court. Oh, whoops. Signed a written confession admitting to the murder of Inspector Gregson and the subsequent conveyance of the body. In short, the defendant's innocence has therefore been established beyond doubt. True identity of the Reaper of the Bailey and this extraordinary assassin exchange. We do remain in the dark about these mysteries. Insofar as the indictment brought against the defendant in this trial, we have reached a conclusion. And he's saying right here and now that he's not going to leave that alone. It clearly has to be dealt with more swiftly in light of the fact that oops. Damn it. Keep bumping stuff without meaning to. That it led to something like this happening. Now for the formal adjudication. I hereby declare the defendant for argument 6. Nope. Is Kazuma still gonna be arguing that he's really the Reaper and not gonna let this... He's gonna be the one to argue that. The accused innocence hasn't been fully established at all. Because he's gonna make the argument that there's still the possibility that he could be the real Reaper, but... Van Six has committed crimes for which he must be punished. The murder of Inspector Gregson was actually carried out by Seishiro Jigoku. It's clear from the witness's testimony that he was coerced into complying with the plot by his counterpart from Britain, who he still refused to name. Who was pulling the strings? The victim went to France having been ordered on a mission for the Reaper only to be murdered. Mastermind behind the assassin exchange is someone in a position to give such an order. I mean, there's not really that many different people, like I keep saying, that that could actually be, are there? That would appear to follow. Prosecution hereby formally accuses the man in the dock for Van Six being the Reaper of the Bailey, and furthermore, gotta prove his guilt beyond all reasonable doubt. I know I was gonna do that, but I think that's something that's gonna have to probably go further what's gonna turn out to be the conclusion of the entire story. And I trust that the game will give me like a chance to break this up before that happens, we get to that part. Scotland Yard has already investigated Lord Van Six very thoroughly in that regard. They found no evidence whatsoever to substantiate this claim. But apparently circumstances have now changed. say I'm surprised by quite how tenaciously you appear to want to besmirch my name. You're guilty of an unforgivable crime, Lord Van Seeks. I was just waiting for this. Whilst it's extremely irregular, will on this occasion grant the prosecution further opportunity for witness testimony. The defendant will disclose any and all involvement he has had with the Reaper and the Assassin exchange. Are we doing this right now? If we're going to another testimony here, then I think that that's gonna have to wait. I hereby declare this court to be in session for a supplementary hearing. I mean, are we doing the next bit of testimony right now, or is there actually gonna be a chapter break? I'm gonna consider this a chapter break even if there isn't one, just because we're clearly heading in a completely new line of stuff here. Welcome to chance to testify now and cross those allegations once and for all. Let justice decide. The prosecution seeks to begin building its case by calling the accused to the stand as the primary witness. What says the defense? Well, I guess we can't refuse that now, can we? Defense has no objection. Just like the prosecution had no objection before. You will take the witness stand and give formal testimony on the subject of your involvement with the Reaper and the Assassin exchange. Hold on. Just in case there's no actual chapter break, you might have to say right here. Because if it just goes straight into witness testimony, I think we're just going to make that be the stopping point. Nope, apparently there's literally no break. It just goes right into the next testimony, but like I said, I think that we're gonna have to leave that as the, I guess, self-appointed chapter break for the time being. Feels a little weird that there would be no division of the pacing right there, but I mean, it feels like a lot of the pacing that we've seen in this last couple of cases has been pretty weird overall. But yeah, don't know what else I can expect from this conclusion, but we're gonna have to wait just a little bit longer until we continue on with the case. I will be returning to this tomorrow and be wrapping up the whole thing. I'm thinking if it doesn't completely stall, I guess would be one way to phrase it. Probably will be wrapping up the whole thing either tomorrow or on Thursday. For now though, I will do something. I'll go ahead and play this thing as the chosen one track to play us out, and yeah, finishing a little bit earlier than usual too. Certainly earlier than I ended up finishing yesterday, but probably a good thing overall, just because of the we're gonna fit better with these like extra days, weekdays that I've provisioned myself with specifically for this purpose. There's also been a bunch of fucking bot follows that you can't see, but that apparently occurred. I'm pretty sure that most of them should be like deleted or banned at this point, but I'll deal with the rest of them in just a little bit. But we'll worry about that later. Right now, I guess we're just gonna go ahead and head for the end of the stream section here and cast things off for the time being. I feel like this might be one of those days where it's probably a good idea for me to just kind of wrap things up without necessarily having any greater fanfare. without necessarily having any greater allergies. I feel like I've been tripping over my words all of today, and I don't know if it has to do with the fact that I pretty much willingly deprived myself of a little bit of sleep. Or I could maybe try to shift my cycle in that regard a little bit. Or, I don't know, something to do with... I would say something to do with the fact that I barely had any of the old drink that I always have around, but I feel like that's a more frequent occurrence than I care to admit. It just happened to coincide with this, whatever this is. Thanks for stream, thanks for stopping by, Nictophile, yeah. But yeah, like, I'm pretty sure that still doing it, see. Like, I'm pretty sure that I've said in the past, be back tomorrow and Thursday at around the same time to continue and probably wrap up good old Greatest 32 here, but if I end up finishing it by tomorrow, then I don't know what I'm gonna be doing on what it called on Thursday, to be perfectly honest with you. Probably something else that wouldn't take too long. Or maybe I could just like do a surprise continuation to Ground Cross, since I don't know what I'm gonna be doing with that for this Spooktober month, concretely speaking. But yeah, I'll figure that out as it comes. Speaking of Spooktober month, there's probably a few things that I need to briefly look into in preparation for that, but all that will be dealt with in due time as usual. But yeah, for now I think I'm just gonna go ahead and head out, so I will say as usual, you'll take it easy, I think. Everybody for coming like always. Thanks for chatting, always great whenever people chat. And I'll be seeing you later.